And there we go, we're live on TV. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming out on this snowy night. I know it's trouble getting here, and I appreciate that all of you have shown up. I'd like to begin the meeting this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our public agenda looks pretty short. There's only a few items on it, but they're big items. We're having a public hearing this evening. I'll just read right off the script because I do that best. Over the past year, the Litchfield Planning Board has been working to understand Litchfield's residents' vision for the future of the community through a future land use mapping workshop, one-on-one conversations with local residents and business owners, and a community survey. Based upon what residents stated, the board has been working to update regulations to balance future opportunities to protect the town's agricultural character and allow for non-residential development in a way that blends with the community's character. Additionally, the board has been working to update regulations such as its bylaws and description of zoning boundaries, both last reviewed in 1989. Good evening. So the format for this evening will be, I will open the hearing. I've done that. Board members will introduce an item, and let's see. Board members will hear comments from the public. We're going to stick to each item, comment. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. Please be brief and to the point. Please avoid repeating what has already been said. Each member of the public that speaks, please state your name and address. Very important for the record. Board members may ask questions, but we do not deliberate until the hearing is closed. The board may set a maximum time for all comments on a given item. I think we're going to play that one kind of loose. We'll see how much time it takes to get through this agenda. I would like to conclude this meeting by 10 p.m. this evening. I don't want to keep us all out too late on a snowy night. And we will begin with Planning Board bylaws. Now, we didn't delegate out which board members would like to speak to which items. Is there any? Town of Litchfield Planning Board bylaws were last updated in 1989. Amendments have been proposed to be consistent with current state law and practices and include updates to membership, role of alternates, roles of officers and recording minutes, disqualifications and conflicts of interest, meeting schedule, and hearing procedures. That said, we do have printout of the proposed changes to our bylaws. On these copies, the blue underline text, that's the proposed changes. The black text is what's carried over from existing language. So having introduced that item, are there any members of the public who would like to give comment on the Planning Board bylaws this evening? Any comments or concerns from board members? Hearing none, we'll close the Planning Board bylaws. And move on to Agricultural Overlay District. The proposed Agricultural Overlay District is a new zoning ordinance section designed to promote the preservation of existing agricultural land and character along Route 3A while maintaining the existing development rights of landowners. The draft overlay applies to all parcels 10 acres or larger and allows any new development to be clustered onto smaller lots in exchange for permanently protecting quality agricultural land and keeping development back from Route 3A. The overlay's district boundaries are proposed to be all parcels west of Route 3A and agricultural and open lands east of Route 3A that are south of Robin Ave and north of Jamesway Drive, excluding conservation lands and developed lots. The ordinance refers applicants with lots 20 acres or larger to the town's existing conservation open space ordinance. And that's this handout, a few pages with a map on the back. Are there any members of this public who wish to give comment on the proposed agricultural overlay ordinance? Yes, sir. Please.
Donald Wilson, and I'm not a resident of Litchfield. However, we've had a business and owned property here for over 50 years. Address is 10 Pleasant Wilson Farm, 10 Pleasant Street, Lexington, Mass. The overlay, from what I see on the overlay proposal and what has happened in different parts of the state on farms that have had either conservation easements or overlay districts or any additional action on agricultural land seems to take away from the land. It doesn't preserve it. I think one of the latest ones we saw was over in Dover at the Tuttle Farm, and it's a long history of that. And there's no conflict of interest, but we are distant cousins of the Tuttles, so you know where I'm coming from. The farm is the oldest operating farm, supposedly the oldest operating farm in America. Consisted of about 175 acres of very developable land. Ran into hard times a few years ago, was put up for sale at a price of $3.25 million. A lot of farmers looked at it. One of the problems being the first thing, when they looked at it, first thing is, well, we'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, we can get our money back. We can develop some of it or all of it because it might not be practical. This came from 2 or 3 sources. No bidders whatsoever at 3. No bidders at 2. It languished for over 2 years and was finally sold to a farm in Massachusetts for a retail outlet at $1.1 million. So in the restrictions on the land to preserve farming killed the sale price of the land totally by 2/3. And the more restrictions you put on the land, the harder it is to borrow money. You go to the bank and they say, well, you have no collateral. What have you got for collateral? Because this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. First thing the bank looks for if you have to expand, what have you got for collateral? And after seeing what happened at the Tuttle Farm, most of the lending community knows what happens to the farm's value. We do have a right to farm law in New Hampshire. We have we've got some common sense laws, but we do have a right to farm law. And most of the protection we get out of this, outside of future development, is already in the state right to farm law. Why I'm speaking on this, fortunately or unfortunately, or however it works, ours is by far the largest parcel of land that this affects. And will affect us. The other thing is agriculture is changing. It's changing all the time. What happened 10 years ago, we don't even know about now. Now, by that, I'm looking at the crops we can raise. Under the new Food Safety Act, it's going to be very difficult for most New England farms to survive on fruit, vegetables, and edible products, especially leafy greens, which leafy greens, anything you can eat the leaves of. Everything from cabbage to lettuce to herbs and all that. The big push right now is in covered agricultural production areas. There's a 50-acre greenhouse project in Madison, Maine. Totally covered. 50 acres in one building, and that's origin for a roof. But just to say, I've been there, just to stand inside a building and look around and see 50 acres covered with leafy vegetables is tremendous. But the cost of building something like that for any average farmer in Lexington is totally prohibitive. The company that built that is one of the largest investment companies in the United States, and that's their hobby, and they can well afford it. But I don't know anybody in Litchfield that could afford it.
No.
So this is, I feel we should leave it as it is. There's a few tweaking you're going to do in the transitional, and that, but the agricultural overlay, I feel it's just too complicated for us. It's too complicated for our family, and it's too complicated getting this, if we do have to change some things, down to the next generation. And we have no intention of developing, we have no intention of doing anything. And as smaller parcels came up, we tried to add them to the farm. The farm has grown over the years, and we probably just continue the way we're going. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Other members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm Claudette DeRocher. I live at 158 Charles Bancroft Highway, and we have the Blueberry Farm. Our farm spans both sides of Route 3A, which kind of presents an interesting dilemma. And I was here in June when the farmers and other townspeople were invited by the planning board to discuss the future of Litchfield, and it was a very harmonious meeting. And the main thrust of that meeting that came out of that is we just like Litchfield the way it is, leave it alone. Don't change the zoning to allow gas stations and fast food restaurants and strip malls all along 3A. And that was the gist of it. We never heard about proposing an agricultural overlay district. And when I read this multi-page proposal, it's described as a vision for the future, but to me and to my family, it looks like a nightmare. It's a maze of restrictions and mandatory one-use or non-use of the land. It's 5 pages, but actually it's more because it refers to state laws by statute number without elaborating. So if you put that in there, it goes on for a few more pages. For instance, under design standards for development, it says all residences and structures developed along Route 3A on the west side, which is the riverside, shall be set back a minimum of 250 feet. I guess it's on both sides of the highway, from the highway's right-of-way, and set back 150 feet from the Merrimack River. For lots 10 acres or less than 20 acres, the setbacks shall be 75 feet. But distances from the river are not the same throughout the town. The river kind of winds around, and so does Route 3A. So for example, when you look at the golf course at the north end, it's kind of a distance there. But then when you come south to the fire station, the river and the highway are together, and then they broaden out. So some of these farms are wider than others, some are deeper than others. They're not all the same. In our neck of the woods, where I live, the land between 3A and the river is slightly less than 1,500 feet. It's 1,488 feet. So you subtract 250 feet from the frontage, 150 feet from the river, you're now sliced off 400 feet from the depth. Add a few wetland restrictions that may traverse the whole place, and buffer zones and whatever, you probably diminish the length of that place by a third, which is asking a lot of a farmer to just, leave it alone and we're going to enjoy it. And do you get compensated for that? Does the town of Litchfield? No, you don't. You just sort of like, I'm going to be a good guy, I guess, and give it up. Nothing. And then I have another question. If you do develop that and you set back, well, a lot of these farms are old, and along the frontage, they already have farmhouses on them, they have barns, they have storage, they have greenhouses, and they have all kinds of other little buildings. So, supposing they're developing the backland, they need 250 feet from the highway set back, what happens to these existing buildings? Do they become non-conforming uses? So if you want to tack on a little addition, put on a little porch or something, now you're going through the Conservation Commission, you're going through the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Planning Board, finally the Building Inspector. It's an awful lot of hoops to go through, and I don't know what the answer is to that question. And then I read that parcels that are 20 acres or greater, or at least 25% of net acreage remaining, this is if you're developing, after the area of all wetlands has been subtracted, shall be retained as open agricultural land for development purpose. So that's another 25%. I get a feeling that by the time you finish with all these 25 here and that setback and this thing, you've sort of nibbled the whole farm away, and you're left with little spots, of farmland. Well, little spots of farmland don't make a great farm. Maybe it's great for a hobbyist, but for a real farmer, he needs a big spread because it's costly to plant, it's costly to maintain, and he needs a crop. You also have a problem when you scatter farmland hither and yon around subdivisions and whatnot. You may curtail access to a water supply. Farmers, when they plant large acres, they look towards what can I use for water, because inevitably you do all the right things from spring on, and then comes late June, July, no rain. For weeks, your corn dries up and you can't revive it, even if you water it afterward. So you look for either river, spring-fed pond, or a nice big stream. But if you get housing all around, or if you get streets in the way, you can't run pipes over that. So you're stuck, and farmers are going to be reluctant to farm that kind of stuff. It's just not really a practical thing to do. And it also says that after your land's developed and you're going to reserve so many acres for farm, you have to give that up. It's going to be protected by a permanent conservation easement, which is kind of nice, but does anybody reimburse you for that? No, you just kind of absorb it, or the developer or somebody. I think this proposal, I get a feeling that it was drawn from some other community somewhere and tweaked to be part of Litchfield. But it is so complex, and I've read this thing over, and there's other things in here that I don't really grasp, that I have to get a consultant to go through, and it's very burdensome. I think it should go back where it came from. I think you should not put it on the ballot. It's incomprehensible right now to most of the townspeople. It's incomprehensible to some of us who will be affected. And it really, really takes an awful lot of land. It's a very cumbersome piece of. I think the answer, if you're looking for something and you want to preserve farms, I think you should look to your Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission over the years have done a good job of protecting wetlands, which are important to a town. You need good water sources. But I think now they should veer off and try to see if they can protect some farmland that may come on the market. It may be small farms or something. bankroll their current use tax money that they get and prepare for that. Look for maybe support from the federal grants, the agriculture department. I was kind of sad that nobody made a bid to buy the Rodonis farmland. That's beautiful farmland on the east side, and I guess it's all going to go for apartment construction or something. But that's the kind of thing, or state grants. Right now, state grants, I think, are kind of lean because these are bad times and the state doesn't have much extra money. But I think putting this ordinance in place is one of the most discouraging things if you're a farmer. We've been farming our farm for 70 years, and you get to love your land. That's the problem with farmers. They get kind of rooted themselves, never mind their plants, you know. And they want to keep their land for as long as they can. Unfortunately, when they completed the turnpike system, it put us into a competitive, almost disadvantage with some of the big growers in New Jersey and New York State. They come in by the fleets of stuff and they depress the market sometimes. So there are all kinds of conditions, and as you keep farming, you keep your eyes open because things change, and what worked 15 years ago doesn't anymore. But this ordinance is unbelievable. It's draconian. So I would respectfully ask that you withdraw it, think it over some more, mull it over some more, but please don't put it on the ballot because you can't live with this. It's just too much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
just for the information, the 250-foot setback on 3A and the 150-foot from the river is not ours. That's existing zoning in the town of Litchfield. It's been there for years.
First we hear about it.
It's in the,
It used to be 50.
it's in the,
2010 open space.
over the open space, and it's been there. That's where we pulled it from.
210?
In open space.
Yeah, that's the open space. We were never consulted about that.
But
at all.
I mean, it's not something just so people are clear, we're not trying to add this in. This is already existing.
Well, I think it should be
So-
revised. And
Well, that's what we're here for.
please put it in your notebook for further revision.
The gentleman behind you,
Rick Charbonneau, and I own a fair amount of 300 of the acres that are in here, so yes, I own a fair amount of it. I live at 401 Charles Bancroft Highway, and where I live, I have 95 acres. And I think you should leave it up to us to do what we want with our property. I bought the property around my house. I don't want neighbors. As Claudette said, we love our land. I'd like to go out there and look at my fields, and that's what I want. But I don't think anybody should tell me that, or my kids or whoever down the road, that they can't develop this or they can't do something with it. You should leave it up to us. If we want to sell the development rights, if we want to do that, we should be able to do that. We shouldn't have this hung over our head that this is the only thing that we can do with our property, is what you're proposing. We've done, the farmers, we've done a very good job protecting the farmland. Hasn't changed over the years. I can understand the people that live in the subdivisions, they want to see the farmland. But when that farmland comes for sale, the town could buy it, and then they could protect it. But what happens when the town buys property, as they have in the past, it never gets farmed again. It grows up into trees. There's land right across from the library that the town owns. That used to be all farmland. It's not anymore because nobody takes care of it. We take care of our land so that it can be farmed. The Wilsons do a very good job with this. They bought other property, they buy property that comes next to them. I buy farmland when it comes next to me, if I can, if it's available. So we really should leave it the way it is. There isn't any proposals to do developments out here. We like our land the way it is. We want to enjoy our land the way it is as much as the other people in town like looking at our land. No one's proposing to develop it. Then you have Passaconaway in this overlay district. Passaconaway is not gonna get developed. You have the subdivision that's in Passaconaway in this overlay district. I don't know why it would be in there. There's houses up there, it's already developed. It's not gonna go back to farmland, it really shouldn't be in an overlay district if it's already a housing project. You know, the golf courses developed. I mean, chances of that ever happening. Then there's so much land along the river that's in the 100-year floodplain, it's never gonna get developed anyway. There's a lot of it. It can't get developed. So we're kind of telling it, we're preserving our land and keeping character of 3A so that people can look at it. And then we're getting this thrown at us. And I've spent a lot of money to buy the land around my house, and the Wilsons have spent a lot of money to buy the farms that they bought. And, you know, between us, we probably have the most land that's affected here. And I agree with them. I think we should stay the way it is. I mean, I'm not doing anything with it but farming. And down the road, if it comes for sale and the town wants to buy it, keep it as whatever they want, they can do that. So that's what should happen.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jerry Parent, 6 Talent Road. I'm not a large landowner, but I see this as a land taking. We're always being asked to sell our development land to the town and have it left as farmland. So everybody says no because they want to keep it that way. And now you're trying to pass laws to take it away from us. There's no compensation. It's kind of like you have a house, and when I say get out because I want to put your land back in farmland, it just doesn't make sense.
Thank you. Yes.
Margaret Parent, 6 Talent Road, and I'm here representing our family that owns over 50 acres in this area. And there's just a couple comments I'll make. And first of all, Litchfield is a beautiful community. You drive down 3A and you have farm stands, you have the old farmhouses. People tell you it's a very nostalgic feeling. We have been very lucky that we have stayed with this country flavor, where we're kind of stuck between Manchester and Nashua, the 2 largest cities in the state of New Hampshire. And we have really stayed rural along 3A. It has been a farming community. Not always vegetable farms. There used to be cattle. There was timber for farming. So there's been different kind of farms. And most of the farm people have kept it as long as they could. There are still a lot of farms going now, but as Don Wilson said, farming is changing. Much of our land used to be farmed at one time, and Dave Campbell was one of the big people that would come and rent the farm when Tuckahoe Turf was in town. They had 16 acres that they used for their sod. There is not people now to come and farm our land. At one time, to help with taxes, I checked with a couple people if they wanted to rent the property. They did not. So keeping it as farmland sounds good, but if you can't get people to farm it, or farming is changing, then what are you going to do for the taxpayers that are paying the taxes on this? It would be burdensome for us if we aren't able to take the property, and if we have a chance to keep it as farmland, we will. We don't have people in the family that would take over and farm it as our grandparents used to. We've got a piece of land that we did have 25 acres in conservation as a wildlife sanctuary. So we've done a lot for conservation. But being restricted and penalizing people because we held on to the property, we did not sell it during the building boom, is now you're saying, now you have to keep it as farming, but if nobody wants to farm it, then you're not going to have an income on this property, but you're still going to have to pay taxes. So if this is something you're going to do, then you need to do something to the landowners to help compensate if you want to keep it that way. It is not fair to do this to a small group of people, and the rest of the town is not being penalized or put into this zone. Much of the building now, where many of the homes are, used to be wildlife areas. We used to go out there, we would pick mayflowers, cut your Christmas trees, a lot of wildlife there. It's built up, that's where people live, that's where the 1-acre houses are. They've really kept them off 3A, which has kept 3A rural. So when I look at this and see the restrictions going on here, you are actually penalizing the people who have held onto their property. Most people are not looking at selling it right now, but if it can't be farmed, what are they going to do?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Richard Riley, Rotterdam Drive here in Litchfield. I also attended the public outreach meeting that the planning board put together back in June as your way of kind of preparing or seeking guidance while you prepared these type of changes. And I also recall very clearly that the majority outcome, at least from the public feedback, was try to preserve the current character of the Litchfield, and I heard that echoed by the planning board members that were in attendance at that meeting as well. There was quite a bit of discussion around the farming and how that is in large part what makes up the character of this town, and a lot of desire to keep that. But the discussion was really try to find creative ways to, encourage that type of continued use of this property. I don't recall any discussion around an overlay. Well, I think there was some discussion around an overlay district, and I believe the discussion, at least from the public perspective, was why would you take away the rights of these landowners, which essentially is what that does. So I am a little bit surprised to see this being proposed today. I know there was a survey that you guys put on your website, which had a question that I think even mentioned, how would you encourage it, and it even had like an overlay district. I don't believe I've ever seen the results of that survey, so I would like it if the board would tell me if there are results to that survey, A. And two, I also think that Claudette posed at least a couple of questions, one of which was, pretty much who wrote this particular ordinance, this particular overlay? Where did it come from? Did the planning board draft this? Did it come from someplace else and the planning board is approving it and looking to put it to a vote? How did you guys come to this exact wording and where you are with this thing today?
It's been a work done by the board over the last several months.
With the help from the state or just by the board?
It's been the board working with some help from consultants.
NRPC?
Yes.
So, the survey, are there results to that survey? This was, I believe, the second survey. You put one out there, you put results out there.
Yep.
Then there was a second follow-up survey, which had some similar questions, but slight changes, some more specific kind of alternatives that you had kind of gotten from these outreach. I don't think I've seen any results to that second survey.
Let me see.
Are they on the town website?
From the community planning, yes.
Yeah.
So, community survey results.
Yeah, I thought I looked at that one.
That was the first one. Okay.
Up to the 2000, under the, that right there, 2013, that one.
One of those questions did involve an overlay district. Is there a response to that specific question that contained that language? So I'm just curious. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, like, if you're having these outreach, and it sounds to me like, at least the meeting that I attended to, the majority felt like this wasn't an appropriate thing to do. And if the survey says,
How many people? To me,
I don't know.
3 people?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Jen, do you know if that...
Yeah, keep scrolling.
106 respondents.
Page 14. Question 8. There.
should we deserve? Conservation easement.
First one was easement, the second is a rural residential and agricultural zoning district, the third was overlay.
And that's what led us to where we are today with this proposed ordinance.
How many people?
116, I think they said.
106, I think.
Interesting. Well, I guess I would just like to echo, I think, what I've heard from the folks that have spoken today, which is that, I just don't think it's right to take away a landowner's ability to decide what they want to do with their land. As much as I love the character and what you see as you drive down Route 3, and would love to see that continued, I would prefer to find other ways of encouraging that continued use rather than putting something like this in place, which pretty much puts handcuffs on these particular landowners as to what they can do with that property. It's just too much for me as a citizen. I don't think it's right.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Rick Charbonneau again. I mean, you put this to a vote, we don't have a chance. I mean, who wouldn't want to protect the farmland? With all the people, all these houses that you see knocked out here. And unfortunately, I developed most of the land on a good portion, but it's in the middle of the town. We didn't.
Where do you want it up?
They're going to vote for it. I mean, they're going to say, yeah, we're going to protect the farmland. So why wouldn't they vote for it? They're not thinking about what we have or what the farmers have done or anything. We're outnumbered, hands down. There's probably 20 of us versus everybody else that would say we should leave it the way it is. We don't have a chance. So to say that we can go on a campaign or ask people not to vote for it, we don't have a chance. You put it on there, it's going to pass. And again, I think we should leave our land the way it is because we're doing a hell of a job taking care of it the way it is.
I agree. Thank you. Yes.
Kevin Lynch, 312 Charles Bancroft Highway. I'm going to speak for my father because he did mention that I should have something to say in this because he owns land, a little chunk in there, okay? We're along the river. We're in the floodplain. We're in an undevelopable. We can't even build on it, okay? As we all know, the flood of 08 visited our backyard, okay? That's most of Route 3A in the valley, just from the golf course, which is in the same situation, all the way down. That was designed. That's what it's for. Our point is, and I think it's going to go back to what Claudette DeRocha said, we took the overlay, is what I'm seeing here, the agriculture, come up with the overlay, put the conservation open space development regulations in it, which is something that was developed, that was approved 2010, if I recall, for conventional, non-conventional subdivision, what I call sprawl, which is a common thing for Litchfield. 1 and 1 acre lots, big lots, frontage, we can't even maintain our roads, okay? To use smaller areas, and that's what the open space development was. I want to get rid of the word conservation because that should not be used. That's not what it's intended to be. In other words, use less land. This regulation takes up a lot of that land, the way it's written, that open space, and that's a problem that I feel with it. By applying that, what's that got to do with the agriculture in the first place? You're trying to preserve the agricultural, but you're throwing in a subdivision regulation onto it requiring this open space, which, as she has mentioned, you take the 150 from the river, you take the 250 from the road, and the way the regulations work in Litchfield, if you got a wetlands, you got a 75-foot buffer. That's a non-buildable too. That's taken out of it. That's in the aquifer protection regulations. There's another layer on this too that takes away land, as was mentioned. Okay, there's all these little easements that come across. Okay, and you lose more and more and more. One of the things I'm going to say that I am going to say that I've lived here all my life. Route 3A has stayed just about the same. Rick has bought up around him because he wants it that way. I've got to give him credit. He's maintaining his banks his tree lines, he's kicking it back. He brings in brown, solves a lot of problem with trees, okay? We got town in the state has bought our farmland and let it go to hell. The library beside it, there used to be a field there. That town bought that, didn't do anything with it. Across the street, the state bought that piece of land. Just let it set, because you can't talk to anybody in the state about renting it. Okay, they get a little odd about it. Okay? So, all the liability stuff. So, I have to agree with Don, Rick, and a lot of the other folks here being in town and watching this town grow. We take care of ourselves. This regulation is just going to be more restrictive. It's not gaining anything. Matter of fact, it already applies to them. That open space development subdivision, you guys have already taxed with it. Okay? That was done in 2010, and even that is a regulation that I think that needs to be rethought about. Okay? On what you can do and what you can't do. So, guys.
What happens to the buildings that are in that 250 setback?
What happens to this is that to become an existing non-conforming use, as you had mentioned.
That's what
An
I'm
existing non-conforming use, the legal aspects of it are, you can repair it, you can fix it, you can maintain it in its present shape and condition. If you need to enlarge it, we meet the zoning board of adjustment, okay? Need to alter it, to change the use, need to meet the zoning board of adjustment, okay? Then you're gonna meet possibly another creation, which would be you for the site plan review or change, okay? It's another tier, okay? If it has to deal with a conservation word or buffer in relation to it, it could be in the buffer pre-existing non-conforming. Then we gotta go to the Conservation Commission to get another blessing. Guys, it just grows, okay? When you do one thing, something else applies. For every action, there's a reaction. We all know that's the hammer theory. And the finger always works. Every time you hit yourself, you gotta say, this is what you're doing.
But when they proposed that, didn't they realize that not all of 3A is open? I mean, a lot of farms, the frontage is pretty much used up with the buildings, because when they farmed, they built barns and stuff. So there's no 250 feet of vacant space on some of these farms. I mean, you may have 50 feet on the side and some of the backyard, but it's just not existent, and I don't know how you can apply that.
You got your ditches, you got your swales, you got your 25-foot back from swales, 50-foot setback, and some of them, which are our swales, but that's a definition issue. It grows and grows and grows. One of the common threads that I found, okay, your regulations haven't changed in 20 years. The aquifer one, I'll say that, and just bringing it up. That's another overlay. Has a lot of little restrictions in it. She brought up the gas stations, the drive-through uses. Those are all things because of 500 feet of frontage. Why? We don't know. Okay, I'm just saying. I think this right here, I think the intent and the purpose of the thought of it, but it's not ready to go before the board by any means, or to the people. It's very confusing. And Rick is right, okay? 90% of the people out there go to vote on the recommendations of you. And I think this board has done their part. Thinking they have, not to say you haven't, just to say that.
That's what we're here for tonight.
Tonight, what we feel is wrong, and these are the major landowners affected by this. Okay, so that's what okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I wish you folks could come to in front of the planning board and try to do something. A couple of years ago, I came and subdivided a lot line change in a lot that my wife's family owned 8 generations. After losing the 250 feet next to the river, the town took an extra 10 feet from me in front of my house, 600 feet long, and somebody else wanted to take the rights of the trolley tracks to walk from nowhere to nowhere, because the trolley tracks don't connect to anything. I felt that you were in my wallet. you have to understand the feelings of people coming in front of this board and the zoning board. I find you're very anti-business in this town. We had a person in this town wanted to build a gas station. I'm not against gas stations. I know some people are, but this man was going to be putting everything possible for safety, and we turned it down. Where do you go buy your gas now?
Out of town,
In another aquifer, I may add.
in another aquifer, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Caroline DeBlaise, lived in this town my entire life. I had to teach a lot of riding lessons in cold weather to keep my property. My mom bought it 49 years ago. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. To be honest with you, I called Joan. Chris is one of my customers. He said he read it in the newspaper and he was gonna come down here and help me. I don't even know what this means to me. I take care of horses every day. It's what I do to keep that farmland for everyone to look at. But when I get older and I need to sell this place, I gotta know that that's what I can do. If I can sell this farm someday so I can retire like other people. But I don't think that's sounding like what's happening here.
You have no authority.
So that's good, so I'm protected.
But you're next.
So I can leave?
But you're next.
So I can leave?
But you're next.
But I'm next. What am I next for? I don't want to sound ignorant, but I guess I am. What am I next for?
There's a map right there that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on.
That's good.
This, I don't know, this survey. So this was in like the newspaper, we're supposed to read it and
It's on
no.
the
and
website.
It didn't come in the mail and said, Darlene, open this.
Came in the mail, we sent out flyers,
Yeah.
it was advertised all over town, on the website,
Oh.
and different signs around town. We were at the Strawberry Festival.
Me? Who's
No,
cleaning
we were,
stalls every day?
we were, at the Strawberry
No, I
Festival.
think if it really is something that pertains to landowners or who it is, I think it needs to come in the mail and say, open.
They come in the mail.
It did?
HLN, there's an insert, almost every home
Oh,
in
the
that town.
the newspaper I threw away.
Yeah, it wasn't a mailing though, it was in the.
It's not a mailing.
That costs no money.
Because I was thinking, I didn't get a mailing.
But, you know, it's like, to me, that's junk mail. It's stuff I do not have time to look at or want to. I just need to know, I guess, what happens to me, so it's not happening to me right now.
No, you're out of the loop.
I'm out of the loop, but
This one.
for how long?
this one.
For this one.
For this,
Okay.
But I think it's an over-reliance on the website. Not everybody, goes home and said, I just must go look to the planning board website every day. So I think you have to disperse your message into different website, maybe have a news article, even if you have to draft the release yourself, give it to the H&L, the Telegraph, the Union Leader, and then use the website, because some people love the website and that's their mode of communication, but not everybody does that, and even those who do may not be that faithful. So I think you have to get your message out in different venues so that we'll say, oh, I didn't know that. And then you get kind of agitated and go on and do something.
to send everybody a mailing as a letter, is 48 cents per person, per resident of town.
I'm not saying
We
that.
did do handouts at the schools to take home. Like we said, it was in the Litchfield News. It was advertised for the Strawberry Festival. We had a good turnout. So we are trying to get the message out there. to
How much
people.
value of land you just take from us, their cost? Have you figured out what it's gonna lose, all this land, the value of it?
That setback, the 250-foot setback,
No, we're talking about everything, the overlay completely.
it's,
You also had a federal grant. You used monies to conduct these studies. Couldn't some of that money be used for an actual mailing? I'm not criticizing, because I think you guys have done a really above and beyond in your outreach efforts and through your communications. But I also recognize that sometimes it's just not enough.
And that's why we're having these meetings.
People are too busy, or people are focused on a certain type of communication method. And typically postal is one of those things that just isn't going away yet.
does everybody know what nights the planning board meets?
Tonight, first and third Tuesday of the month.
I'm glad to see so many people here. Do you know what the average turnout is for a meeting? Zero.
Yeah, I understand. Certainly, once I got wind of this meeting and the only reason I got wind is through hearsay, or from my friend, I should say. I passed the word on to as many of my neighbors as I could. That's all I can do.
Mike?
Mike DeMarco, 16 Colby Road. I just wanted to comment on your mailing situation. If you need some help, I can definitely help you out with it, but there's a program the post office offers called Every Door Direct Mail. It'll cost you 14.6 cents a piece. Just throwing it out there. Yeah, you can either Google it or you know where I'm at.
Yep. Thanks. Joan, could you catch up with him and get that information? Thank you, Mike. That's good to know.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Andy Coleman, 31 Chasebrook Circle. Folks, I like a lot of what you've done tonight, or heading into tonight for your zoning. There's a lot of good changes in the other zoning that I think are improvements to our existing zoning, but this isn't one of them. The agricultural overlay, I don't think it's ready. I'll try not to repeat everything that's been said. I don't think it's necessary because we already have the conservation open space zoning. So I think this is an additional layer of government regulation that just is not necessary. I think it has some serious legal problems. There's a provision in here that says development of any farmland would require 25% of that farmland be set aside forevermore as some conservation without a corresponding compensation to the landowner for that what could be an unconstitutional taking. I don't want to see my taxes go up any more than anybody else to pay for an unexpected or unintended taking of land. I think that perhaps should go to council, but I think that's a real problem because you heard from the majority tonight that you are essentially, that's that 25% set aside. Never mind the setbacks are already there in place in other ordinances. But that 25% set aside is just an outright land grab without any compensation to the landowner. I think that's a real problem you should look into. I think Mr. Rocha makes a very good point. I hadn't thought about this thing. You're creating hundreds of non-conforming uses with this ordinance. And if one of our farmers, the Rochers, the McQuestons, Don Wilson wants to do something with their land, with one of their buildings, they got to go through an elaborate process just to put an additional wing on a barn or an L on a house, right? The creation of the non-conforming uses is going to create more business for me, frankly, which I don't need and I don't want this type of thing. I think the comments from Rick and Kevin are dead on. If you put this on the ballot, and I don't think this should go forward to the ballot. We had a meeting last week. I think the consensus was this was premature to get to the ballot. But if you put it on the ballot with the magic language recommended by the planning board, it'll pass. People don't know the details. People aren't affected like the people in the room. If you, all people really look at is the language, no, it's too long, recommended by the planning board, yes. That's a problem. It's a problem with how we vote. It's more systemic, but that's where we are. If you put this on the ballot, these folks, get the short end of the stick. So I'd ask you, please do not let this go forward. Work on it. There's no urgency. We have very good stewards of our farmland. The McQuestons have owned the land since the 1700s. Folks here tonight are not developing, have no intent to develop. The impact on this passing is going to just undercut the value of a lot of property in town. So I would ask that not go forward for the time being. Some of the other ordinances I like, I do want them to go forward, not this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken on this yet would like to speak? And how about the board? Any members of the board have questions, concerns, comments?
I think that we do have to do some more work on it before we do anything with it.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that this is premature. I think it needs a lot more work if we're going to bring it forward at all.
Yep.
I'd also like to find out about recommendation from town council about the constitutional implications of this being a taking.
The council did review this.
Well, that's a good point. He didn't, I don't think he specifically mentioned anything about that.
No, I don't recall seeing that among the concerns that council did bring forward.
That's the question. That's the question you want to ask the town council. My recommendations, like he's saying.
Yep.
His question is, what is the effects of taking? That's what are the effects of what it would do with that?
I think more importantly, before we even bring council that question, we have to talk amongst ourselves as a board. We need to deliberate of how best to handle this.
Well, argument there.
I think we've always discussed the concern of the property you own, the current use of your property should be the use that you have for the property. That's always been something that we discussed going along.
Right.
This table, right? And I agree that all those zoning ordinances will help on Route 102, less frontage for some of the commercial areas which we need. We want to attract businesses to areas that we have business already, which is 102 corridor, and kind of funnel it in that direction. And I think we've made it less restrictive for landowners in that corridor to use land for the purpose they want to, and what it's zoned to currently.
Right now, we're just talking.
No, but I'm saying, I agree. I don't think this definitely shouldn't go on the ballot.
I think we heard some great comments tonight.
Yep.
Certainly.
Plenty of reason to table this.
I think this is, I think it's very grandiose in its design, and I think that it needs work. It would need a lot of work, and if it wanted to go through, and I don't think it's something that, I think looking at the agriculture in the town, I don't know, I mean, I think that this type of ordinance, I don't know if it really fits that type of agricultural system that we want to.
And you already have the conservation in place anyway, so why add an extra layer of government bureaucracy?
Well, I think what it needs is it needs to be looked at more, and I think it needs to be reviewed more.
Someday it may be helpful, but I don't think today's that day, and certainly not as written right now. We have folks who own land who are good stewards of the land. Oh, thank you. I'd missed that. So we'll set this aside, and we'll move on to
the only thing,
yeah.
In terms of and Jen, I don't know if you want to speak, in terms of the community planning grant, because this is part of a grant. And one of the things that the grant talked about was sort of this idea of agriculture and commercial development. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect how we proceed with that. Obviously,
Are we still in compliance with the grant?
So, in anticipation of this not being ready, I did speak to the grant administrator, who said that there are no repercussions if the board holds on to something to take more time, then that's perfectly fine.
Good. We want to put forward a good product, not just a quickly developed product in the interest of hitting a check mark on a grant application.
And that's what they would like to see as well.
Good. Thank you. So let's move along and have a discussion of the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. Minor amendments are proposed to the Aquifer Protection District to clarify existing provisions. The definition of impervious is updated to reflect current science and practice. A reminder that a current use permit is already allowed for applications will exceed 50, let me reread that. A reminder that a current use permit is already allowed for applications will exceed 15% impervious is added earlier in the ordinance. Lastly, the reference zoning districts are amended to correctly cite the correct zoning districts. Site plan review? I may not have grabbed that one.
Ross, what's the zoning number on that?
1250.
1250.
Thank you.
It's a single sheet of paper, two-sided. The heading is 1250 Aquifer Protection District.
And the proposed changes are in red.
In red?
In red.
Or gray.
Or gray. Depending who printed it.
According to the town color code, black and black.
We're not allowed to have color into this building.
Are there any members of the public who wish to give comment on the Aquifer Protection District proposed changes? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the 80 Problem 31 Changeburg Circle, I have no comments to these particular changes this year, but I would encourage the board going forward into 2014 to consider moving the permitting of uses within the aquifer protection to a full conditional use permit with approved by the planning board to remove it from the zoning board's jurisdiction if something doesn't apply. And I could elaborate further if you want to contact me directly, or I could go through Jen.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Richard Riley, Rotterdam Drive. I also sit on the zoning board, so I'd be curious to hear the reasoning behind that now, because if I'm not mistaken, today the zoning board is the body where a use permit is either granted or denied based on an application and the applicant's presentation of, or response to the criteria that would allow the board to grant it, for example, okay? So why does Mr. Froman feel the need to cut the zoning board out of that process?
Well, the issue's not germane to the ordinance tonight. However, the reason is, as most towns have discovered, the planning board has the greater resources and tools to put an application under scrutiny than just a one-time application presentation to the zoning board. There are different bodies in that they put different levels of expertise and analysis to an application, and there are different standards of approval. I think the planning board can do a better job at certain things, not everything. You know, the zoning board certainly has its role, but again, there was just a generic comment for next year.
Thank you. With that said, for 2014, the planning board will be visiting this additionally and soliciting input for both of you gentlemen and the community at large.
Yeah.
Let's make this process work as best we can for all of us.
From a perspective, we have the ability to bring in independent expertise to look at all the evidence being presented to the board. So certainly, I mean, it just seems odd that historically this responsibility has resided with zoning boards throughout the state, and here we are proposing to change that for some reason.
Well, not in this.
No, not here,
ordinance,
obviously,
but future work may include something toward that end, but not without your consultation.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
So as proposed, are there any more comments or questions about the Aquifer Protection District? Yes, sir.
Chris Columbus, 15 Cummings Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. There is a minor minor amendment of striking concrete from the listed impervious surfaces listed. Now, what is the purpose of striking concrete as an impervious surface? Is that in relationship to stormwater, or is it globally through the entire document? Because there are other provisions in this that speak to impervious surfaces.
Right. Thank you.
In that line, I believe that was to be put in as an addition and then decided not to. What, no?
No.
Why then?
Could you please, Jen?
It's not that concrete is eliminated. Concrete by itself is impervious. And so even regardless of this change would be considered impervious. The piece was that this implied that if the concrete had cracks in it, it would be considered pervious, which in fact the infiltration that you get from a few cracks in your concrete does not actually render that surface pervious. So this is more just keeping it consistent with current science, and that is there.
That also applies to the asphalt that's called out in that provision as well. That if it, as long as it's not cracked or if there are any fissures or anything in there, that the asphalt is also considered an impervious surface.
Asphalt, earth, and water, other ground, which could react or dissolve. That next, the next line is actually confusing. You're right. The point there is that if, however, that asphalt, earthen, wooden, or other gravel structure is constructed could react or dissolve if it comes in contact with a regulated substance, then it can't be considered impervious. The main point here is making sure that regulated substances don't infiltrate into the groundwater and contaminate residents' wells. And so in this, it's simply the caveat is they do not count as impervious if they could dissolve. So as long as the asphalt is applied correctly and cannot dissolve and permit the infiltration of a regulated substance, then that's it.
Just a technical question on that theory. Impervious surfaces, the technical part, we're talking about a chemical now. That's a whole separate issue. Concrete or asphalt as an impervious surface is the idea to prevent water infiltration. We're talking the aquifer protection for the protection of it. All my gas tanks, or fuel tanks, storage containers, have to be what we call a concrete impervious wall. So impervious surface including concrete unless sealed, cracked, or holes are present. What if it's failed, cracked, if the impervious system is failed, which is what this is saying,
yeah,
then it's not impervious.
You're right.
Okay? So the science of this is
You're right.
Is just say, okay, strike that completely. It's concrete is impervious. It's intended to be like that. Okay? Concrete boat.
Impervious surfaces
Okay?
include
It's just-
concrete unless, yeah.
That's my
Good
point.
So we
Okay?
probably shouldn't strike that sentence.
The reason I ask is because there are businesses in town that utilize fertilizers, manure, what have you, and store those on concrete. And to strike that as a suitable surface for
Wouldn't make
storage.
sense.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying, if the concrete was cracked or had an expansion joint or had a sediment or a trap area, that's a separate issue, guys. But that's the construction point. I know what you're saying there, okay? Good point.
Thank you.
Plus, what am I gonna do with my septic tanks and hold all my skid tanks?
Any additional public comment on this? Thank you. So we'll need to unstrike that stricken line. Moving on to our next item, be the commercial, transitional, and commercial industrial zoning ordinances. The intent of the proposed amendments to the non-residential zoning districts, commercial, transitional, and commercial industrial, was to promote development with a small New England town character and set standards and boundaries that match existing parcel configurations. A new section, 408, of general requirements for non-residential uses consolidates all common requirements, which are in turn struck from the individual districts to eliminate redundancy, and adds new standards, landscaping, lighting, screening, unsightly features, to protect community character. Amendments to sections 600 to 1000 include reduced frontage requirements, 200 feet on routes 3A and 102, amend permitted uses to be consistent with existing and desired development, expand agricultural uses, limit large-scale, more industrial uses such as vehicle salvage yards, amend zoning district boundaries to reduce instances of split lot zoning and update parcel references to correspond to the current assessing maps. And that would be this packet.
Is it up there?
It's not up there yet. It will be.
If we get up there, let me know what you're looking at.
Yep. What? Looks like this, Kevin.
Mine's in black, okay? We're coming to town. This idea of gray is very light.
Only 7 pages.
And
He does now. That's the button I was looking for. It's a lot of technology. Sometimes. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak about the proposed non-residential zoning amendments?
You have a reference in one of here to the proposed agricultural overlay district, so if that's not going to go through, that would be relevant, right on the first page under Southwestern Commercial.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Russ?
Yes.
If I may, just really quick, as a point of clarification, the packets, the first several pages are just a summary because the proposed changes were so lengthy. We put a summary at the front. So none of this front document, front few pages would actually be going to the voters. The part that would go to the voters.
It begin in the middle of the packet.
Yeah, starts.
General provisions.
400.
Yeah, it starts with 400 general provisions at the top of the page. Just as a point of clarification on that.
And that proceeds to 1,000.
Correct.
So that's where the actual changes would be occurring.
Have you checked with other towns on what they require for minimum frontages for different types of businesses?
We have done some surveys of neighboring communities, yes.
Sometimes you go to a business and they don't have enough parking or something, and it gets to be kind of a jumble. And if you go to a Dunkin' Donuts in the morning, the street becomes their parking lot because everybody's parked, and they just don't have a big enough corner lot, and everybody's in the street.
You wonder what the planning board that approved that was thinking.
Well, they probably didn't think it was gonna be that popular, you know?
Probably. It
All at
it
one
provides a
time.
cautionary example for our board to work from,
Yeah.
looking at neighboring towns that have maybe not done it as well as they could have.
Yeah, I just wondered if you ever check around with other towns and say, is this a good proposal for this type of business? They would say, no, maybe in our experience, we thought we were doing well. Experience has proved that this type of business needs a little bit more. That type of business is fine with what you're proposing. I just wonder if these towns ever go to other towns and say, you know, where did you screw up and tell us so we don't do the same thing? Or if you had to do it over again, how would you improve it, you know? I'm sure the owners of these Dunkins don't like to see the cars, it's like on 102 across from Hannaford, they back right up to the intersection into it.
Yeah.
Maybe they would do it differently if they could again. I just wonder if planning boards ever consult with each other or consult with businesses and see what they would do differently. Now that many small towns have had years of experience. I know when they began, nobody had enough experience and they did the best they could. Now they look back and say, gee, you know, we should have done this a little differently. Does anybody benefit from that experience? Do they talk to each other? Do they?
Also, we work with the Nashua Regional Planning Commission, which is an incredible resource for what other towns are doing, what other towns have done right, where they could have gotten it better. I can't speak enough of the resource that NRPC has been for us, and really helping us to make the best decisions we can with the best information available to us.
Russ, I can add from experience working in other towns in the same position as the building and zoning official. I know in the 90s, when I went to Milford for the first time, they had a Dunkin' Donuts coming in there. And the stacking of the cars was a big principal factor because of McDonald's and Burger Kings and all them back in the 80s and all them were coming in. Stacking was a big problem. And from then on, other towns had followed what we had done. And that is we provided extra lane of stacking to get them off the road and stop the flow of traffic and stuff like that. That was a big factor. And that's what stopped a lot of development in certain locations because of stacking capabilities, which is part of the planning process. The towns did take that into consideration. NRPC is doing that when they look at the review of stuff, other towns, stacking is a big factor. It's not just for the Dunkin' Donuts, the Starbucks. You get into your fast food, your takeouts, and all that, especially with Dunkin' Donuts now. And when they get in, you can get a cheap something that takes all day for that woman to get it. Okay, so these are all things that are all played into the NRPC stuff. You're right, that's the resource that's there that we use. Same as the other towns done.
10 different towns, when we first started doing this, gave frontage requirements that all 10 towns had. They were very comparable in size to us, I believe. So it was like Nashua or Manchester, it was small towns in Hampshire. With all 10 for frontage they had for commercial and industrial businesses, and I think we try to incorporate the best we can in the areas on the map to where it's more applicable. Regarding Dunkin' Donuts and those things, they probably just, their busiest time is during rush hour. So, I mean, that's something that you always got to think about if you're putting something on 3A, which will go through. But it's just, they're busiest when there's the most cars there, and that's the nature of what they do and what they sell to.
Went to New Hampshire liquor store, has drive-through someday.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Andy Perlman again, 31 Chasebrook Circle, and folks, hallelujah. Good job on a lot of this stuff. It's been a long time coming, and I applaud you for your work on these set of ordinances. I love that you're eliminating split lot zoning. I've had to get a handful of split lot variances over the years. They're not hard to get, but you shouldn't have to get them in the first place. It was bad zoning back in the 80s when it was done, just cutting a line right through lots. This is a great job, and I applaud you guys and Jen for drawing lines that follow roads and follow lot lines. That's a huge, moment of progress for our town, and I will vote for that and tell my friends to vote for it. I love what you did with the frontages, reducing the frontages. The frontages came from another time to keep out development. It would be, I believe, the 500-foot frontage requirements were intended to exclude possible commercial development. I think that's bad for a town. I love what you're doing with the frontages. So I commend you. I had one particular comment on the Route 102 zoning. And that's at 601T, where you eliminate or prohibit garages, automobile service garages from operating, effectively in town, but in particular in this district, and I would ask why. I would suggest to you that if there's anywhere in town where we would want auto service, if I can go have my oil changed, or have a transmission worked on or whatnot, the Route 102 corridor is the place where we would want it as opposed to Route 3A. I think that's a service people want and need. I prefer to keep it local. Again, you are creating a non-conforming use problem if you prohibit that, because there's an existing Chappie's garage on Route 102. There might be one or two others I don't know about. I don't see that that's, I think it's healthy to have all types and shapes and sizes of businesses. A garage is one of them. You know, I don't see why you would prohibit that. But beyond that, folks, good job all around on this set of ordinances. And I appreciate it. It's a long time coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
On the northern district, that's all going to be commercial to the, whatever the lot numbers are. So lot 2120, 21-6, and 21-8, that'll all just be commercial? That'll change the commercial? Or is it going to be still industrial? Is it all turned to commercial? That whole piece?
Yeah, that's the proposed.
Okay. Is there any reason why you wouldn't, I don't know, really clear, I guess, but why the permitted uses wouldn't be the same as the southern? I own that piece of property.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I want to put there. I haven't thought of anything that I'd like to put there, so I haven't put anything yet.
Yes. We've been torn down something we didn't like.
Yeah. I didn't like the old houses there, so we tore it down. But it looks better now. That's my opinion.
You know where you are.
So I guess I don't know why they wouldn't all be the same.
Board members care to speak to that concern?
No, it seems northern, southern commercial.
Speaking of the northern.
Other than that, you guys are doing a great job. That's not complaint. If you leave it the way it is, it's okay too.
This is the monumental step you've taken. And I have to, on Andy's back on that one there, you made a big changes. The garage, I have to agree with him there. Repair shops are not an issue. Used car lots.
We had a discussion, and we said it primarily as a sell, like you can't put a used car dealership or a car dealership there, but if it's not a primary use of the property for sell, like we mentioned, a mechanic wants to sell a couple cars here and there.
That's allowed by statute, but it's not a used car lot, okay? It can't be.
No, I'm saying that was what we're discussing, is not putting a car lot on 102. We discussed allowing, we talked about garages specifically, how garages have the right to sell a couple cars here and there as part of their fixed up and sell, they should not be denied that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, by not allowing the garage is what he's saying.
That's how I read it.
It's in the wording, yes.
It's in the wording.
The intent was not to do that.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. Can I ask, is this the one and only zoning hearing, or is it going to be round two?
We expect it will be around 2,
Thank you.
early January,
Okay, great.
21st. That's early.
Now, on page 5, you're rezoning land on, it's kind of hard to tell where. Route 3A, on the west side of Route 3A to the Merrimack River, from the town line to where?
That's the boundaries of the southwestern commercial district.
That's the
We're not rezoning those properties, it's the boundary of what encompasses that area, the southwestern commercial district.
Were there split zones in there, is that right?
Yep.
So that would include all the houses along that strip?
It's all the lots that are listed in there. It's the whole area down there in that southwestern that's encompassed in those, map shows that. doesn't it?
Third page of the map.
Yeah. The map there shows the areas that are affected.
So you would allow shopping areas, these are little malls, is this what you're proposing?
We're not proposing to put anything in anywhere.
No, but I mean, it allows the
What is
permitted
allowed
use.
in there, yes, what is allowed in that district.
So you're proposing malls, basically.
Well, we're proposing that if somebody wanted to approach us to put a mall, a strip mall in, or wanted to put a small family bakery in, it's allowed. We're not proposing that that's what's going to be there.
No, but once you allow it, it's what people look to put there. I mean, they have an opportunity, whereas before they wouldn't bother because it's too much of a hassle if it's not an allowed use.
But the list of allowed uses is quite long.
Yeah.
There are a lot of options there, and not all options have the same development potential.
So this is on the west side only.
I think her point is, if I'm not mistaken, that if you now make a commercial, then it's harder to say you can't put something in there that it's not commercial to begin with.
I'm just thinking, there are a lot of houses along that side. There's that big piece that Wilson Farms on the back side, which has been commercial for as long as I can remember. That's been commercial right up to Page Road. And then the frontage has mostly been residential, but there are some vacant lots there. And I'd hate to see these people who own houses suddenly find a little store going in or a little mall or whatever. I mean, they'll be interspersed in the residential, which may not be such a great idea. The backside is all open
Well,
land.
the commercial area did not increase by any substantial amount. If a lot had half commercial, half residential, and there was a house on it, we tried to make it all residential. If there was nothing there or you couldn't build anything, we made it all commercial. Just so that you didn't have a lot that had, the front half is commercial, the back half is residential. So it's split zoning. That's what we're trying to get rid of. But we're just spelling out which areas that affects. There still is residential and commercial in that area.
So if someone has current use as a residence, it's still being held as a residential lot, correct?
Mhm.
So there's no one's lot is being reconfigured to be commercial if it's currently residential.
What if the lot,
Next door to them?
yeah, is vacant?
They had a whole strip, I don't think we cut it like teeth, I think it was the strip on there.
The residential is still up in this area here. All this was commercial or
Yes.
transitional.
Yes.
So we didn't make it any, appreciably bigger.
No, I'm just thinking about, where Jolt Electric is
Yeah.
and all that strip, the west side of 3A, that's the west side.
Yep.
So there are a few vacant lots there, here and
Right.
there, and they front on 3A.
But they are all commercial or transitional.
So you're saying that in those vacant lots, you could have commercial establishments next to the residential?
You always could. You always could have them in a commercial area.
I mean, it'd be better to have it just one residential, so that the people whose houses are there won't be suddenly cast in a mixed district,
Well, we're not trying to add new zones. The only time we're changing a zone line is if it goes through the middle of somebody's property.
Yeah.
And if it's residential, there's a house on it, it would stay residential.
Why don't you make the lot next door residential, so this whole lot, frontage would be residential, you wouldn't be, if you have a house, and you wouldn't have to worry that the next door is gonna be something other than a house, it's gonna be something else.
But that future house would have something other than residential next to it. So,
It's a daisy chain.
yeah. it could go on indefinitely.
Well, at some point you would stop because there's a big frontage there that owns, you can't build on the front because it's a big drop anyway. It's a natural divide.
Right.
And that would end there, you know, I would think.
For what it's worth, we may have this covered also. Looking at section 701, permitted uses, there is language being proposed to add that includes large regional shopping type uses such as department stores are not permitted. We don't want a big mall any more than we do.
Well, it's not that I'm anti-mall, it's just that I'm trying to think of
The character of the
the
community. and what would
homeowners who
fit.
own property there and they have a vacant lot. You don't want them to be surprised.
Right.
by
But
saying,
that
"Oh."
happens all over.
Yeah, but
I mean-
you can prevent it right now.
We have that ability. I think this part is written in such a way that gives us the protection that we're looking for.
I wouldn't feel.
Your comment is commercial next door, it's next door, the way this is written.
Right, but if you add that one piece, then the next piece is next to it, so.
Yes, sir.
Mike DeMarco, 16 Colby Road. I think that end of town is kind of a mix already.
Yep.
The tree farm down there, both electric. It's an ice cream stand, DLB paving, and homes, right?
Yep. Any other public comment?
So,
Yes, sir.
would you consider putting the same stuff at the south end as the north end as the south end? I never got an answer, never heard, why it wasn't there.
Why is there a difference between the both ends of town is the question?
You just don't
How
have the
did we
same
end up with
The
that?
north end commercial.
The north end commercial, we did restricted, industrial.
But you put commercial.
You have 4 permitted uses. In the south end, we have 12, 14.
You're not questioning the zone itself, it just was permitted to be done, so.
Yeah, I'm just
It's
saying.
just mirror each other for both commercial.
Yeah, that's all.
Pretty darn close.
So this is one forced to look at the wrong spot.
What?
The northern commercial and the southwestern commercial are almost identical.
Okay, I got northern commercial district and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 permitted uses.
No, turn the page.
Oh, look,
Turn the page.
Third page, go to page
8 and
9.
9, page 8 and 9.
What?
They keep going.
I don't have
No, 9?
Sorry, that's Kevin's fault. It's Kevin's fault.
My packet also misses
I didn't give him that. I came, I got it right out of here.
Two-sided print,
Oh.
you sure you're looking at both?
Oh, it goes on, there's a
Here.
lot of pages that I don't have.
If you don't mind black and white,
No, they're the same, that's fine.
Is
they're
it
pretty close. There's a couple uses that might be different because one goes to S and the other goes to P.
Question I got for you, is it 801 or is it what section, 800?
801.
801, and that's permitted, and that's on page 9,
Yeah.
okay? With permitted, there's a whole slew.
We get into hard discussions, what is to the outcome we have.
Definitely in that, in conjunction with each other.
There are 2 different districts to begin with and the board didn't go, back there. You can pass it back to us.
Sorry about that.
Well, no, I just got page 8, so that's fine.
You trying to spook him?
I got it, just. Sorry.
I'll get you a full set. It's black and white.
That makes a big difference.
Look at the
I can
landowners.
understand why you're calling.
The landowners get one set of ordinances. Just kidding.
Would you like to mirror the two so they're exactly the same, because they're the same zone?
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough. It's not- I was just more curious why there was only 4.
Yeah, no, we'll give you more choices.
What's the definition of agro-tourism?
Petting farm.
Heading farm. Okay. I can raise fish on it, yes.
I have it all in this package.
Keep going.
Keep going, where am I going? What are you sending me?
Any other comments?
Other- Thank you.
Please.
I got caught up in my copy that was up to page.
It's an agricultural processing plant. What is that?
You make honey or jam, jellies, or you're processing it. We limited it to, you can't have large, I would call it wasn't like large.
Large scale operation. You
Yeah.
can't put a slaughterhouse or
Yeah.
a meat packing facility
Yeah.
or something like that. But
We should
Well, we-
bottle what you make.
why we had to do that is because doing honey or packaging strawberries in a carton is processing it. So we had to put that in so we didn't hurt people. Yes, Mike.
Tom, I gotta go close the restaurant. I just want to thank
Hey,
you.
thank you for coming, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll be talking with you. Excellent place. Excellent place, Steve.
Pat Aljo, 17 Natticook Ave. Also, my sister and I own a technology park. Your list of permitted uses there. What if we want to do something different than what's on your list with our building someday? Right?
Visit Mr. Riley.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, it starts
I mean-
at the building department, and then I guess it could work its way to the zoning board if it's necessary.
He's in an industrial manufacturing. He's actually light manufacturing.
Right.
Every terminology of it, which is not a bad use in the commercial zone, adding a light manufacturing in there, okay? Which is not a bad use, okay? Which is, as you all know, they're very quiet.
Awesome.
Okay?
First time you've seen me.
Okay? That's something that realistically, I find that to be a better use on all the places that I've seen, because one, your sewer loads are minimal. It's just office staff, no processing or chemicals is very minimal. Okay? They have a product they're manufacturing like a small machine shop. And they're bio, and that's all ergonomically, they're not contaminated, and they've got such a ISO requirements for them. The machine shops are very well run, they're very light manufacturing is what they are. I think that's not a bad use in a commercial AK industrial district, because your sewer loads are minimal. Your occupancies, they can be like, you got bench work.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if you want to bring jobs into town, I don't, you get...
IDF, I'll throw that as another example of you.
RDF?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very similar
quiet.
to us. You know, we have 70 people that work for us. I know most people don't see that. They go to work and, you know, on the weekends, they see a few cars there on Saturday. Claremont Rulings has 10 or 12 people down there. You know, we might want to expand our building someday to add more light industrial. There's a lot of things we could potentially add and add more jobs to town. This looks like it would limit our ability to do that.
Thank you.
So I have a real layman's question. Between his property and Mel's, it says there's a commercial land that's for sale right in through there, correct? So what could go there? What are you guys talking when it means commercial? Like, we putting a Walmart in there, or is it something small?
It's the list of permitted uses that you seem affected. And it excludes specifically
Big box.
big box stores or.
So it does, so when you guys are saying
They don't
commercial,
actually store it, it's not enough. We're not gonna want to come in there.
no,
Do you want the copy?
I'm Colleen Ellis. I'm Patrick's sister. I live in Londonderry, but our building's at 480 Charles Bancroft Highway. Our building was originally built. People that have been here in town know that our building was originally built. It was a shopping center. It was a grocery store. If we couldn't expand our building, 'cause, and we needed to move to Manchester because it was zoned that we couldn't expand our building. Most of those 70 employees come from town. We hire kids right out of high school. They raise their families, buy houses in town, and live in town. Chris Columbus lives in town and works at New Small Tubes. But Mr. Parent walks through and sees plenty of former students there. We would have to move to Manchester or the airport, and they do come court us, where they have a lot more services for manufacturers in Manchester after the airport. We stay in town because we're loyal, and we've been there forever. However, if you change the wording on this to say, I'm not sure about what your definition is of local shopping centers and department stores. It would limit our ability then to sell our land, which we pay commercial taxes on, if it wanted to become a shopping center again, if it wanted to become it used to be Michael's Market. So I have a question about that change in here. Where is your definition of small scale shopping centers compared to, I understand what you're doing, you don't want to put the outlet stores in Merrimack on our property, I guess. I would think that's probably what you're going for, but if we couldn't expand our building and then had to move and wanted to sell our land, I think you're kind of handcuffing us that way. If we couldn't put it in a grocery store or whatever we wanted to with that land that was.
If I may address that, what we, myself and some of the board members are envisioning as a small grocery store is the Harvest Market on 101, something in that idea, not a big market basket of Hannaford's, something on a medium scale or small scale.
Well, but these ordinances are going to be around long after you're gone, right? So what you envision and how you define it may be different than what the next people define it as. So if you think Harvest, and I might question why you think I should be able to sell my land to Harvest Market instead of Market Basket. I understand you're looking at a size, but I think if you're going to put that type of restriction in here and have it be subjective, you should either define it better or not have it.
Right, and I'm not saying, what people have told us, they don't want a big box store, which is a Market Basket. That's a big box store. The other ones are a smaller scale. What people have envisioned and told us, some of them what, a bakery, family-owned and operated bakery and coffee shop, something like that. That's the stuff we're envisioning. We're not envisioning a multi-floor hotel or a big department store or a super Walmart, something like that.
Zoning-wise, right now, retail is permitted under B. Establishing, offering goods for sale, including dry goods, food, hardware, clothing, apparel, antiques, that's a new one that's lined up, and general retail commodities, but not including automotive service, repair, gasoline, always move to gas station. So it is allowed, if you wanted to sell and put that a retail in there, it is allowed in the zoning that we're talking about now.
And you can put that in exactly.
Right, you put it in. One of the areas that I want to throw at you is that why are you allowing churches and parsonages on your commercial land? They're tax exempt. Okay, put them in the residential zone where they belong. Okay? That's my point, okay? You're looking at tax base, you're looking at commercial, and then you've got schools, nursery, and daycare centers in areas like that. Gray area. Funeral homes. The uses are very old. Okay, they're very old and not today's standards or thinking. Is what I'm thinking here. So I think you've done well. This is a first step. There's more work to be done. Okay? I'm just saying. But to go back to the retail question, if somebody wants to go up and wants to put in a Harvest Market of that nature, yes, they can. Zoning-wise, they can.
Still permitted.
They're permitted uses. We get into the aquifer, we get into all that stuff, but that's another story.
How do you define too big?
We can't define too big here. Your land will be dictated that.
This zone is intended to provide for an accessible, well-planned area for local community shopping functions. Clusters of shops or small-scale shopping centers, as well as individual shops, are encouraged for this zone. Large regional shopping-type uses, such as department stores, are not permitted.
That's not what it says here under B, under permitted uses. Establishing offering goods for sales, including dry goods. If they intended to reduce it by going under the intent up at the permitted uses, and they got some in the zoning, that the intent of this is to look at smaller stuff. It allows larger stuff the way it's written.
Allows civic center.
It allows the civic center, allows it all, okay?
Picking the size of the store.
Yeah, picking the size is not the issue here.
January 21st meeting, and to address your concerns, I thank you for hiring people in town and your business, and I don't think anything should ever stop you from expanding business, because you shouldn't, it would be stupid to have a company not be able to expand if they're doing well. I congratulate you on that. I think that's something we could address before the 21st meeting, but I don't see any reason why as a town we should stop them from expanding and not give you the ability to expand.
You get a variance for the use in the first place, if I recall, when they went in there.
So I wouldn't take that as any issue.
Right. That's not an
We
issue.
could address it for the next meeting too, but I would encourage the growth because we helps the town overall. So thank you for that.
I also think about churches and commercial. Sometimes when churches try to establish themselves in established residential area, they meet up with some resistance, not all, but sometimes they do because they have parking lots, they're lit up at night, they have traffic to and fro on weekends and stuff like that. So sometimes when they propose that, the neighborhood is not very welcoming.
Right. It carries a lot of the trappings of a commercial operation.
Yeah, in a commercial zone, nobody really cares much, you know.
So while it is a loss of a tax revenue stream, it is a good fit for that type of a development.
Well, you'd lose the taxes in a residential
You would.
anyway. And they may bring people to town, and maybe they'll stop at your local restaurant for breakfast after church, you know, and stuff like that.
And you don't include it as prohibited. So you kind of have to have it there in order to allow it. If it's not on the list, you can't do it. So I agree, you should just keep it.
Like variance.
Give them something to do.
Hey, Jehovah, Muslim,
Yeah.
Jewish, good luck, guys.
So let's, one more around the room here for commercial, transitional, and commercial industrial zoning ordinances. Any other input from anyone who hasn't spoken yet? Anything else from anyone? How about the board? All right, we've got some more work to do on that. That will be going back to hearing on January 21st with a few edits. And then moving on, next item up for review this evening, or next item up for public hearing this evening is the site plan review regulation amendments. Amendments are proposed to three subsections within the regulations general standards section. Amendments proposed to 120.1.5, number, spacing, and width of access points, require 300 feet of separation between driveways, and encourage shared access points on routes 3A and 102 to minimize traffic and congestion and maintain more rural character. Amendments proposed to 120.8, landscaping, require any potential unsightly features be screened from view. Lastly, 120.11, compatibility is proposed to be amended to ensure any future development is compatible with the existing surroundings.
He's not zoning, he doesn't have to be on the ballot.
Right, that's just site plan review.
This is,
It has to go to public hearing, which is why we're here this evening with it.
this is not a zoning issue.
Where did I put my copy of that? Single page. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the site plan review regulation amendments? Any members of the board wish to comment? Kevin. Yes, sir.
Just a legal point, I'm gonna throw at you. You have some thoughts here, but the DOT is gonna take care of any driveway curb cuts on Route 3A, whether we like it or not. They are entitled to them, okay? And they have a right to them. They may not meet the zoning, as you may think it will here, because it meets their traffic safety requirements there. These are good on private roads or on our own roads. But when you get onto 102 and a Route 3A, the state's gonna tell you how the driveways are gonna work. Okay, and that's part of the design, so just to let you know how that plan works out. Their curb cut controls everything. Whether you're gonna be 200 feet or 300 feet or 5, or whatever the case may be, they may even allow one for the abutting land right next to it, because they have a right to it, okay? So you may have driveways that are side by side. You have an existing lot of record, you can't take that man's right away from a curb cut for the use. He may want to come to you guys with a plan on their lot. I think Andy will agree that existing lots of record meet the criteria, as long as you meet the zoning and that. But the curb cuts is another issue. So, I'm just bringing it up.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Board comment? Questions, concerns? Moving on, final item for public hearing this evening is multifamily residential overlay district. The proposed overlay is updated from the proposed tripping over my tongue. The proposed overlay is updated from that proposed in 2013 to better identify the overlay boundaries based on public input. The new multifamily residential overlay district is proposed to provide opportunities for development of multifamily housing as required by state law. As drafted, the ordinance requires any new multifamily construction to maintain the existing character of the neighborhood. The minimum lot size proposed is 2 acres for the first 3 dwelling units, with an additional 5,000 square feet required for each additional unit, and no more than 6 dwelling units may be permitted in any one structure. The proposed district boundaries are the residential and commercial districts north of Leech Brook, and the residential, commercial, and transitional districts south of Page Road and east of Route 3A. Public comment on this proposed district?
How many acres are you proposing for this?
We're just making it available as an overlay in existing,
You have no idea how many acres you're allowing for the overlay, or is it 100 acres, 200
let's see.
acres?
We have that information.
I'm looking at that big space down there, and that's a
Yeah.
pile of, that's a lot of land.
Where did we put the working paper that we had?
We didn't rerun the calculations this year.
We didn't, okay.
No. I can give you from what the district was last year. It's not a significant difference.
Can I ask that the plan for the southern part be shown on the screen?
Sure. Where is that?
You on the other site,
Yeah, I'm jumping from site to site.
on the main one she set up, it's listed.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah. This time.
We actually never, kind of going back and looking at the notes, we never calculated the total area that was included within the districts, because a significant portion of what was in the proposed areas was already developed, at least in the portion that was north of Leech Brook. So while the proposed boundaries, you know, were of one size, the actual potential was significantly smaller. So would have to go into the GIS analysis to find out what that, like, the total area was.
Okay.
Did you have a number in terms of how many units could be built maxed out? I thought you had
We did it last year, we didn't rerun it this year.
is the overlay about the same size as it was last year, isn't it?
Approximately.
That was give personality in terms of.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going back through the numbers that I have here.
There we go.
So I can try to,
And it works best if I have a PDF of it. If I try to open it up in a browser window, it comes out all horrible. Oops. That button.
Old school.
Kevin's way ahead of me. Thank you.
What's the map?
I'd like to speak to this one, to help you, and try to explain this one to the people tonight,
Please do.
okay? I'd like to explain this a little bit, your question, because you mentioned the southern part. What this is, as you see here on this little teeny map, okay, that is this green spot, I'll show you right here. So all this goes through here, and includes this, comes around, all this, okay, is included. All the way down to the Rotterdam, comes down through here, goes back. This piece that you see in the yellow is not included to be multifamily. That's the piece that's owned, that's the Redonis Farms, the wooded area. That's the one that you see the field on Route 3A, and part of it. What is proposed to be multifamily, according to this map here, is the transitional zone strip, right here, which is impractical to do when you figure out the density of the areas and everything else, just impractical. But there it is there. Goes along Route, paved road, okay, behind the parcels here. That's the open field that's back there now, that Wilson Farms. Blossom Court, or Arbor Circle, that's a big chunk in here. That's proposed to be multifamily. That can't be developed anymore. So there's areas that can't be touched already on here. This little strip in here, which is part of, I'm going to say Peter Nash and Kevin Slattery, who bought these two pieces of land in here. Just a narrow strip in here. This is Weinstein Well. That's a production well. Nothing goes in there. Okay, the radiuses are all protected. Okay. This chunk around here is Kevin's again, and that and Peter Nash. The town of Litchfield owns all these lots in here. We get them as an individual lot in a row, but we got that back in Chester Karen filed up back in the day. This right here is developed. These are house lots now. This right here is all developed. That's the condo development, another elderly complex. That piece is tied up, so that can't be it. So what we have here is the state of New Hampshire, which is dedicated to the circumventual highway right at the moment. Okay, right through here. So I'm just explaining to you what's available, what's there, guys. I'm just being practical. What is not on here is, oddly enough, is Olson's Trailer Park. The only multifamily area in the area, I'll say, is not part of it. But that's commercial. And we're allowing multifamily on all the commercial that we proposed on 102. That's what I got here, right, guys? Okay. So, and most of that's BAE, and we just approved the subdivision back there that you don't see, but that's minor. But that's all small stuff going on there.
Now,
That's what the southern tier is about.
What is the
What's
yellow?
other pink?
Yeah, the pink.
This
Along
thing
the
here-
river, yeah.
No, that's not part of it, guys. If you see this up here, that's what they're proposing.
What is it? What is it?
What's going to be
That's commercial and agricultural down there now. That's existing zoning.
Who
That's
owns it?
commercial.
Who owns that parcel?
Wilson.
Oh, that's the
Wilson
other
owns
side.
all this in here. Annandale goes right down through here,
Okay.
James Way.
Yeah.
State, town of Litchfield owns this piece, big chunk in here, and that.
So that green space,
That's
Along the road.
that's the frontage, that's the big
We're
field?
not talking about that. The multifamily one is what's on the board, which is right here now. Don't go by all these blue lines. Route 3A is right here,
Yeah.
okay? Anything on the east side of Route 3A, that narrow band, this right through here, can't do anything with that chunk anyhow. All these homes along here can be multifamily, but this is somewhat restricted out now because of the area. This is owned by Peter Nash in this area here. Okay? This is Peter Nash. This is part of,
Lemire.
we, all through here, the tree farm, but they're not allowed to be multifamily. The only areas that are, this is owned by the state of New Hampshire. Pretty wet in here, and we did all that there.
Why would you include what's owned by the state of New Hampshire if it's dedicated to a highway eventually?
It's the state of New Hampshire.
No, the state of New Hampshire didn't ask for that, did it?
State of New Hampshire never asked for anything. They
Why would you,
Because
We
the
just-
surplus land goes to housing. First choice goes to housing.
I know, but it hasn't been declared surplus. Until it is, it's still part of the highway system plan, whenever that comes.
But you have to think ahead, instead of doing it every year.
I'm just explaining to what's here, right?
Right
That's all I
now,
wanted to do.
the circumferential highway is 9 or 10 years out on the plans.
I know, but why put it for housing?
It is,
I know, why put it for housing when it's dedicated to another use, and you don't even control over that? No private developer, nothing.
here again, the land, the area we have dedicated to this, a lot of it has housing on it already.
So it's pretty well
We're not-
stable, we can't touch it.
We're not saying we're gonna build. The state says we have to have an area in town where it is allowed.
But if you,
It doesn't say it has to be vacant land.
You have to, it has to be reasonable though.
I know, why would you include somebody's house for apartments when it's a single-family residence? Why would you
Show
do
the
that?
top, the floodplain.
Well, there could be a 3-acre piece of land with one house on it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at the, up at the, in the north end,
But a developer also could come and buy 2 or 3 houses together and put it up.
The chances of that happening, I'll be honest with you, my experience in construction is very seldom that that occurs. Okay, especially in Litchfield and rural areas. The downtown areas would get a little bit more. I want to go to the northern tier while we're here too.
that's where we are.
I said, Mrs. DuBois is graciously staying away. Okay?
The big one's up, Kevin.
Okay? The north one, okay, the big one's up. Leech's Brook, anybody know where that is? This is Grace, okay, one person knows. Okay, Fran Smith's old house, right along the side there, goes there. From that point north, this is owned by Renee in the backside there, he's curious, right there. We own this, the town of Litchfield, along with this piece, this is Moore's Falls. The horse farm, as we well know, is right there. What you don't see on here, people, is the actual available land use. There's a huge power line that goes across that whole area. It takes up a big chunk of this, just to let you know. This one of these maps are very hard to depict what's usable and what is not. This is the only vacant piece of land available right there. That's owned by the
Focus
people
family.
No, the family, we gave them their land back many years ago.
Yep.
Okay? Can't do anything with here now. And most of these you can't do anything with because they're so small and right next to the brook. Back in here, we have multifamily all back in here now. We have an 18-unit apartment building back there, and we got 5 4-families in this area now. Okay? That's where they built the multifamily. So we just took this area and just did it. It doesn't affect them tax-wise, it just allows the multifamily use. Okay? Most of these, if any of these, I can't get any more than 1 unit on those house lots now, the way the zoning is written. Okay? Just to let you know.
Well, why overlay that when it's really developed, and why create a potential for conflict? for a neighborhood row.
Zoning is conflict no matter how you
Yeah,
look
but
at
you're
it.
creating it, and you're going out of your way. Why don't you just keep it on the east side of 3A, which is vacant land,
Choice?
and maybe the tip over there, which is vacant? Why invade an established neighborhood?
Which tip?
Oh, at the top there near the town line.
Right in here?
It's pretty sparsely populated.
There's no land
No,
there.
that's West Landing, that's all been taken care of.
That's all owned by the seniors,
That whole
the
tip.
development, that whole.
Are we really just creating an area that can't really be done just to cover a law?
We have a legal issue, and they'll bring it up, and we've gotta provide some zoning for multifamily, period. It's called the workforce housing. The word multifamily and
Not
workforce.
workforce, multifamily.
Workforce and
But
multifamily
it's
are
not all
two
Two
separate
separate
things.
issues.
Two separate things, they blend. They do blend. That's
So
the
on-
They blend, but they're two separate.
On my property, where you're talking with the high tension and stuff like that, the multifamily is actually, would benefit to go there.
benefit to you.
Yes.
So if you label that area, that would solve your state or problem or whatever you have, and I don't need to sell it.
No, it's just that
But it has to be a certain
Some,
amount.
the state says you have to have
How
so
many?
much land.
so how much does it say?
It doesn't really define a reasonable amount. Basically, Litchfield, at the present time, with the cost of housing, we're covered
For workforce.
for workforce
Let's
housing.
not mix our terms here, we're
But-
talking multifamily.
Multifamily, we still have to have a zone. They're two separate issues that are tied together.
Yeah.
The state says you will have areas set aside for it. We already do in that area, in the north. We have multifamily housing there.
Right?
We also
So
have a lot
if-
in the south.
Somebody wanted to come in and make the people that own the adjoining 5 lots
Yeah.
an offer, we'll move you out, we want it, they could put multifamily housing in there.
Gotcha.
And the odds of that gonna happen.
Are
is
very
gonna be
low.
a big problem because of density.
Right.
Density rules back when they were built weren't there. So you got 4 units on an acre and a half. We can't even get 2 units on an acre now. Okay, that's how it,
Yeah.
so.
I do see that as being
That's
actually
fine.
a really valuable or use for my land eventually.
It is, it's,
Because it's got the high tension and so on and so forth.
Now, you're talking about multifamily as one use and workforce housing.
It's affordability work.
Workforce is
Affordability.
available.
That stresses affordability, but when they propose workforce housing, however you define that, I don't know. And, I mean, is it different clapboards or what is it, you know?
Workforce
Do
housing?
do you have to, does the developer have to specify a certain percentage of these workforce housing units will be of lower rental so that people who don't make a whole ton of money can live there? Or is it just gonna be whatever the market can bear?
Jen?
So I'll try and clarify what some of the workforce housing statutes say. There are two pieces within the workforce housing statute. There is one piece that it says that it has to be feasible in the majority of your residentially zoned districts to construct housing that is affordable to households at or below the median income. So that definition is set in statute. The town has gone through and looked at their regulations, looked at what's been constructed, and what things sell for in town, and said, we're good. You can, in any of our zoning districts, you can build something that would be affordable to a household at or below the median income. Whether market conditions would drastically change, that might impact it, but one of the things the town benefits from is they look at a median income of the larger area, which the median income that would apply to Litchfield is fairly high, so it makes it so that it's very easy to build at or below that price point. So that's a whole separate issue. The second piece is the statute says that you must allow somewhere in town the realistic and feasible opportunity for multifamily to be constructed. It does not define what reasonable and realistic is in terms of that percent of your land area. And so it's left to a town to say, do we feel that this is a reasonable offer
of a percent of our land area where multifamily could be constructed. The bottom line is if a developer came in today and said, I want to build multifamily and it's not permitted, the town is not protected against a lawsuit. The town could be subject to that. So that's part of what's happening here. So the trick is to try and find that balance as to what is an appropriate location and what is an appropriate amount of land to allow multifamily to be constructed on. One of the things the town had looked at in a previous iteration with previous town council was only allowing multifamily in that northern tip. And council came back and said, with the amount that's already developed there, in council's opinion, it was not a reasonable or realistically feasible percentage of land to be available. And so council said, you need to find somewhere else in town where it can be permitted. And so that's where that southern end of town was identified. And one of the things the board looked at was that, the northern end of the town, the southern end of the town really were kind of, you got folks commuting into Manchester, you got folks commuting into Nashua, and thought those were the more suitable. Also looked at what existing development was in those areas and thought if you had a denser form of development to meet the multifamily, it would fit into that existing context a little bit better in those areas. Now, in terms of multifamily meeting price points, there are no requirements for what price point a multifamily development meets. It just has to be multifamily. So you can have a developer come in and say, I'm just going to build luxury condos that are going to be owner occupied, and I'm going to put 4 units per structure. That meets that's multifamily. So the board does not regulate, and towns cannot regulate that, who that home is sold to or rented to in that respect. So I don't know if that helps kind of.
You build the opposite of luxury apartments?
Yeah, conversely, someone could come in and do something that is a subsidized apartment complex, something similar to, there is a recent development done up in Ossipee that is probably some of the best looking housing in Ossipee, and I can say that because I have family there. So, but it's subsidized, but it's some of the best looking housing in town. I mean, they're really nice, simple townhouses. Amherst, NeighborWorks Southern New Hampshire just built some townhouses there. Those are also subsidized. You could have luxury, you could have subsidized when it comes to multifamily. A town does not have the ability to dictate.
But when this passed the state, the developers sold it on the thing that we need places that are affordable for the workforce. That was the rallying cry. Right. Well, now you pass this and the towns must do this, and I don't have a problem with the part. Everybody starts somewhere. But it's kind of like a sham. I mean, if you can just come in and it has nothing to do with workforce. It's nothing to do with available housing to help people who are starting out, college students with college debt on their shoulders the size of the national debt, and then they got these big apartment bills and everything. It's not helping out. I mean, it's just regular apartments, but that's not the way the developers sold it upstate. I mean, this was going to help the workforce.
Well, and that's why there's the piece that says that your regulations can't be so burdensome that you can't build something that's affordable. And so there you have the two sides of it. In the end, though, it's left up to the developer or the market to decide what is going to be built. So you can make sure that your regulations make it feasible for it to be affordable and for it to be multifamily, but you have no control over what the application is.
Well, maybe the state law needs a little tweaking.
That's all I'm
rising
hearing
from the
tonight.
bottom.
So, I'm gonna stop. I think
Thank you, Jen.
Well, I just had a question. In your past experiences, are the developers looking to get subsidized these extra places? It sounds like they really would want to if they could.
Yeah, so to do something that's subsidized is extremely complex and extremely difficult, and there's a limited number of groups in the state that are actually building housing that is subsidized. And they're working from having a larger portfolio to draw upon, and being kind of ingrained in that system. But they are looking to try and not just build in the same places.
Same style, same thing.
Yeah, on the other hand, one of the things, and my computer keeps going to sleep, that I do understand from talking to some developers is that who have been doing some of the subsidized developments, is that they're really looking for places where it's easy. And there's existing infrastructure, because if they have to bring in the infrastructure, it already blows the budget. So if there isn't easy access to water and sewer, chances are they're not even going to look at the property.
Now, on the southern part, what's that yellow strip reserved for?
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that yellow strip reserved for? On the southern portion?
This strip right here?
No, the other one.
This right here?
Yeah, what is that being reserved
That's
for?
commercial.
Commercial industrial.
So you're gonna wind up,
Yeah, it goes all the way around it. I think this meets the criteria that they're trying to do. The feasibility is questionable. That's why I brought out what I did with some of the stuff that's there. But it takes care of the legal aspect, which is the question.
but the frontage is all gonna be easy to do.
But you really can't do anything with it, density-wise and lot-wise too.
And another thing, just to kind of be a full disclaimer to keep in mind, is the way this boundary is drawn is based upon existing zoning. Now, there's a separate proposal that we already just talked about tonight that looks at shifting some of the boundaries at that southern, along 3A there. Over that section along 3A. And so that skinny little strip that runs along 3A, if those other zoning changes were to pass, would disappear.
Correct.
From the multifamily. And so the multifamily is an overlay tied to what the underlying districts are. So however that boundary shifted, the multifamily would shift as well, dependent on town meeting.
This will all go away. If the commercial, if we follow, instead of going the way
Just-
cross lots.
just that skinny little
This whole
strip.
loop would just about all go away.
It'd just be the skinny strip along 3A.
Right, and you got those little strip, yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah.
Mr. Riley.
Thank you. Richard Riley, 4 Island Drive, Litchfield. I guess I just need some clarification, and then I do have a question. The clarification I'm looking for is, I think on the one hand, we're saying that the town meets the requirements for multifamily housing today.
Workforce housing.
Workforce.
Workforce housing.
For that price point, income point, that relationship. We currently meet that, so we're out of the woods for now.
That's temporary.
Yeah, as market conditions improve and real estate prices go up, we'll be revisiting workforce housing. But, I'm sorry, please continue.
Okay, then I'm not sure I really understand how to go where I was trying to go, because it's still confusing for me. But my question would be, is single-family residences currently allowed in transitional zones?
Yes.
Yes.
Are single-family residences currently allowed in the commercial district?
No.
So what we're proposing to do then is to allow
Occupied businesses.
They're really not,
Yeah.
they're really not allowed in transition.
single-family residences, that's what I'm asking. They're not.
Single-family residents are
Mixed
not
use.
allowed in transition.
So we're proposing to take some of the last, or probably a lot of the last remaining developable land in town and just allow this type of multifamily housing
Not
and
just.
not allow single-family housing.
No, it's an
You'll allow the
overlay.
commercial, you'll allow those kind of commercial uses that are still there, but let's face it, the town doesn't attract that kind of commercial use really. That's why it hasn't come today. So what's left to be built under the allowed uses being proposed here are just multifamily houses instead of single-family houses as well. So you continue to restrict single-family houses, but allow multifamily houses, is that correct?
Depending on what the underlying zone is.
Well, the underlying zones here well, okay, you're doing it in the residential too, but you're
Right.
certainly
Yeah.
doing it.
So you could build,
All of the
Whatever it
transitional
was, it's not taking it away.
yeah.
It's
You
just
could still-
adding a
Layer.
use to
Yeah.
the multifamily, but not taking away the
Right.
original.
So the transitional, and to your point, a lot of the residential is pretty much developed. Residential's there, so it's the last of the remaining developable land in town, which is currently zoned either transitional or commercial, doesn't allow single-family residence homes, and we're gonna allow multifamily homes in those and continue to not allow single-family homes. I think that's pretty much what we're doing, right?
No,
Why?
because this piece right here,
That's all residential, that was restricted over the last year.
It's
this
commercial.
right here, which I own, is residential,
Right.
and that could be multifamily.
Well, what's it shown now, is transitional?
That's residential.
Residential.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But that could
The
be
rest of it is
single-family or multifamily.
Mine's
Right now, you
residential
can do
too.
single family there.
Here, yes, but you can't in any of the commercial or any of the transitional zones.
No.
Right?
Not single family, no.
Correction.
That was
Transitional
rezoned
zone,
last
you
year.
can't do single family.
But it's got a variance. No, you can't. You cannot build a
Right.
single-family home in a transitional zone district.
So it just strikes me as odd that you would, we would do that. I mean, I don't know, it just seems odd. You're gonna allow multifamily but not allow single family in those particular overlays where you're talking transitional or commercial.
Because they didn't want, most people say don't put multifamilies in residential neighborhoods. So
They-
residential neighborhoods are single-family neighborhoods, multifamilies are in different areas that are not residential.
And don't intermix commercial development and residential,
Well, I think
single-family
maybe you could be a
development.
little bit more targeted with these changes then, as opposed to just saying all of this transitional and all of this commercial.
But you have to allocate enough acreage to have it pass the law if someone sued the town. I mean, you
Well,
have to have it somewhere.
so legal counsel didn't feel that the area up north didn't meet it. How much more did he say is required? I mean, did you guys just take a broad brush here and say, this is the easiest way to do it south? Or did you just add enough in order to be able to make it pass the sniff test by town's council? Which doesn't
No,
necessarily, that's just a, that's an opinion, that's not
We
necessarily.
went by what is developed above it, that we can't go into, that we didn't want to go into that, where we have open area. That's where we tried to stay.
I think we looked at the southern portion because we felt that that area kind of met the, perhaps the opportunity, or the realistic opportunity for it, just because it's on that strip of highway, what is it, 102?
Yeah.
When that was proposed, way back when, because I was around when this happened,
To go into that area.
circumferential highway looked like a done deal and was coming through. And the people who owned the land near there wanted to maximize their land value. And they pushed the town to do some rezoning. Pushed hard, even served on a committee, some of them, that was kind of advisory, which is kind of like a little conflict of interest there. And pushed so hard that it was passed like at the end of the year. You know, one of these deals of zoning boards and planning boards kind of drift along until they meet the statutory limit for a hearing, and that's how it happened. And with that highway coming through and connecting to 102, they thought they had a good chance of developing that parcel, and what they wanted to do was in the back end put industrial, because industrial is grimier and, you know, more stuff, more cars. And then in the middle, you put like some light commercial, maybe put daycare for people who work in there, and maybe put a filling station so people can have their cars served, all that kind of stuff. And then the front, they wanted to minimize any commercial development because they wanted to preserve that aspect of that strip. As you enter the town, it is one of the most beautiful strips if you like open land and farmland, and it was a beautiful farm. So they wanted to keep the frontage and settle, and they didn't want it to revert to housing, but the houses that were there were to remain all along that strip, and they could have small businesses in there, and, you know. So that's how they propose it. And over time, I guess it's been modified. Over time, it's been modified, and it's turned into a lot of other things, and that's how that came to be. That was the thinking. It was three 3 layers going in, with industrial at the end. And the Albuquerque was supposed to swing up there, near Rotterdam,
Come into
and connect
3A.
everything, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a grand plan, but it never came to fruition.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if I got a specific answer, but I really would like one. In the transitional, which is currently, I think, shaded green.
Yep.
And in the commercial, which is pink.
Yep.
This proposal would allow multifamily in an area where single family is not allowed and will continue to be not allowed. Is that correct?
Residents wanted a separate area from residential neighborhoods for multifamily, and most people wanted it in the south on 102. The survey of how many response we had, over
So does that mean yes?
over 60% said the southern tier. Yeah, you
I mean,
cannot
yes.
put a single family house there, but you could build multifamily. Because most people, like, if I have a cul-de-sac on my street, I want to have multifamily at the end of my road. Like, if someone had 20 acres of land at the end of a street, you could stick multifamily there in a residential neighborhood. And most people don't want to drive down single family house, single family house, single family house. At the end of the street, you have, 30 or 40 units.
But just
So
to make a
residents were saying,
point,
put it somewhere where it's transitional.
we're not taking anything away.
No, you're not
It's-
taking
it's just-
anything away.
it's
I
adding-
understand that.
It is adding a
It
use.
just seems to me that wouldn't you also encourage single family in this area if
But
in
we
fact you're
did,
opening
because
up
that
the
was
housing?
commercial last year, now that's residential. You could put single family in this area.
That's there. I asked specifically the green and pink areas. I
That's a very
understand the
small
other
area,
area.
though.
Small enough. If you're opening up to residential, why not open up single family as well?
That's right on 102 also.
How many businesses?
Then
how many
intermixing-
businesses in a single family house have a, whatever, doctor's office, everything that
just-
fits in there. In a commercial
We might be
zone.
better off with single family.
Because all they can put in there is gonna be multi.
Excuse me, can we have one conversation, please?
But people want to live in multi-family units next to grocery stores. That's just the way, it is. It's the way it works. So you might not want a residential house next to a grocery store, but you might not want an apartment building next to a grocery store.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, it just, what we're doing is creating a situation where the only type of housing that can be built in there is multifamily. And they're fairly large chunks there that are left undeveloped. So really, if you don't get that type of transitional business or commercial that, is the underlying zone, then all you got left for opportunity to build is multifamily. It just,
And if we don't allow that, then there's no opportunity to build anything. But the underlying zone still stands, and there's bound to be some realistic and reasonable use for that purpose as well, which is why it was zoned for that use. This is just an additional use that could be built on those sites and would help to fulfill our requirements under state law to make multifamily housing available as part of our zoning.
do we actually have the zoning ordinances drafted yet, or is it just the Q&A that you guys have put together on this particular subject?
The amendments?
No, the ordinance. is
Yeah.
in the packet.
What's in the packet?
Multifamily overlay district.
Okay, I missed that for
525.
some reason, I don't know how the heck I missed that. So this is proposed to be on the ballot? You guys are trying to get this on the ballot? for the-
It's at hearing today with the potential for it to arrive on the ballot, yes.
Do you want a copy of the multifamily? Is that
I
the
can
one
get
you-
it from the website, I appreciate that. I'm not sure how I missed it, I'll have to go back and figure it out. On the Q&A, if I could just ask one more, I think it would be helpful where you've shown a number of pictures of properties to give readers examples of what these type of developments might look like. Not one of them is in Litchfield, and yet you've stated we do have several multifamily locations in Litchfield. Why wouldn't you put those pictures there instead? More relevant to what we're talking about, isn't it?
That's a very good point.
Because these pictures were handy from my desktop. That's the lazy answer.
And it would be helpful for me, I guess, the second to last question. I found it, very helpful, the Q&A, to tell you the truth. And in every instance, it's pretty clear, the question and then the response to the question. In many cases, if it was something, the response might have started out with a yes or a no. But you get all the way down to the second to last question, which is, does the town meet today's requirement? You don't start off with a yes or a no. You start off with, it's really kind of confusing to me as I read through this, whether we really do or don't. So I've heard today that we do. meet this requirement.
We meet the workforce, not the multifamily.
Okay, well, I think that answer could be a little better. It's still confusing to me.
Then the ballot last year, I think, was explained. I thought that there was the verbiage that you put in, we put in.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
got
it's
voted
defined-
down
it's
last year,
defined-
right?
Yeah.
Define it specifically, and it was at town meeting too.
Yeah, I think we do need to clarify better.
Coming back to the original question, so how many acres involved here?
I pulled, while you guys were all talking, up the GIS. Raw acreage, not looking at what's developed versus undeveloped, just, or even what's water bodies. So this includes water bodies, so bear that in mind. The north piece is approximately 325 acres. But again, that includes water bodies, wetlands, probably part of the river.
And every house lot.
And every developed lot as well. The south piece is, as shown there, is 890 acres, but again, that includes all the water bodies, roads, developed lots. I mean, it's not actual available land, that number, so.
Can we get that for the 21st? The idea of what's open for both those two sections?
Yeah, we could run back and do the analysis.
It would be good to know what the potential number of units would be. I mean, it's one thing to think of 100 units or 50 or something. It's another to think of 700. You go, well, it's a lot.
We can do an
Last year we had that
estimate.
available
We didn't
to us.
redo the estimates this time around, just because the bottom line is the estimates are really rough. They're a spreadsheet calculation, and they're not. You can put them out there and you can scare people with them, and it's not an accurate reflection of what would actually happen. And so.
That's just a crystal ball answer there, though.
Right.
Bottom line is what you're creating is the potential. for
That's
anything
true.
to happen.
That is true. Fair enough.
Yes, sir.
I just was wondering, we all know about the Litchfield that was purchased by Slattery, and that's commercial. They've got the front part that's
Transition.
multifamily, commercial, and then multifamily. What's to stop them from putting the whole part, going to the zoning board and asking for the whole thing to be, that lot to be multifamily? What's stopping them?
Can't do that.
Go to the zoning board.
If it's zoned, if it's not zoned multifamily, you can't put multifamily where it's not zoned.
Because that piece of land is a big question right now. What's going to happen to it? And can they attack? They got the front part and the back part. Why wouldn't they be able to connect that together?
But it's not zoned multifamily.
Well, what if they come and they say, gee whiz, it's all surrounded by
I
multi...
think we could change that unless it goes to a town vote, and then you make it multifamily overlay of that area.
But they could argue it's all surrounded now, and it's characteristic to put the rest of it in multifamily, and then make a good argument and go to court.
I'm just asking, is it possible?
Yeah.
Can they go to the zoning board
I
and
can go to the zoning board.
Go to the zoning board.
get that done?
Kevin, do you have some clarification,
One
Ralph?
question, I'll go into technical aspects of that. There's two things to remember, Claudette. Remember that there's two parts to the zoning. You won't see the barrier if the commercial goes through. That part will go away. Anyone is allowed to go to the zoning board and seek a request. The chances of them getting them is 50-50. I have to say that. There's no guarantees in life. It's like marriages. Okay? There's always a guarantee there, but I'm just saying, that's the way to look at it, okay? Anybody has a right to go to the zoning board for anything, to feel that something has changed or is different, okay?
I'm going to respond to that,
So
I
the
have
answer
to,
is
because I'm
yes.
on the zoning board. It's not a 50-50. The question of what a zoning board decides is based on the criteria that they have to work with. There is nothing else but science behind that process. There's specific criteria that an applicant has to address. They have to prepare responses to every one of those criteria, and if they meet the criteria, they get the variance. No ifs, ands, or buts. It has nothing to do with chance. It has everything to do with the process, following the process, presenting your case, and as long as you meet that threshold that allows the board to grant that variance, the board grants the variance.
So if someone came to put multifamily in the commercial zone there, would you?
If they presented the arguments, and the arguments were such that the board is compelled to grant the variance, they would get the variance.
That's a,
I'm not saying that, I can't tell you what they're gonna come to us and say,
Yeah, give some
but they have to make the case.
And they've got a case.
One thing we're forgetting here, any piece of land in the town right now, I'm a developer and I want to build an apartment, all I have to do is take you to court.
Yep.
Probably a very good chance that I'm gonna get my multifamily unit on that piece of property.
Anywhere in town.
Correct.
So that's, you know, we're talking about variances and we're talking about all this stuff. The fact of the matter is, if we don't allow this, somebody's gonna come to town, they're gonna say, I wanna build multifamily. They're gonna go to the zoning board board's more than likely gonna deny them because they're saying it's not permitted or whatever. They may, but they may probably not. We're gonna go to court. They're gonna go, I'm not going to court, they're gonna go to court. And they're gonna get it approved. And that's what's gonna happen.
That's all the town money.
And now we're gonna get,
That's where we are today.
that's what we have
That's
today.
basically, yeah.
Which is what brings us to
Exactly where we are
this.
today.
That's why we perform this exercise.
Yeah, but, and I agree. I don't know how it would be decided in court, especially if you already meet the requirements today, at least from the workforce housing
workforce, but
perspective.
not the
Not multifamily.
multifamily.
Well, I know, but you guys are linking it together, even in your Q and A, you're linking all this together. So it's hard for you to keep separating
Because
it,
it is
when in
and
fact
it's
you're
not.
linking it.
Yeah.
So every time we bring this up, you go, no, 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 we don't meet the requirement. Well, but then when it suits you, you say, but they are linked. We have to do this.
No, it's black
So
and white.
it's very difficult for us to follow that train of thought, because it keeps going back to either
basic
they're
way-
disconnected or they're connected.
The basic way to look at it,
In either case, I just want to finish. I don't, you know, if we need to put something in here, then we need to put something in here. It's not a question of that, it's a question of what you put in here. And is this too much? Is one, you know, the north and the south, is that too much? Is what I think people are going to be asking, you know? That's what they're going to be asking.
multifamily housing can be workforce housing. Doesn't have to be. Workforce housing just means the level of the cost of the house.
I think he's just saying where you allow
Low
it.
income housing is what it all is.
It's not low income
It
housing,
keeps changing.
not low income.
The amount is quite talk workforce housing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, no, I'm answering his question he made, so, but, yeah, there's a big difference in what they are doing. We do have to have it, the state says we have to, or somebody can come in and build wherever they want to. That's what we're trying to prevent. It's happened in other towns, and not for the best.
So is your suggestion to shrink it down and not do the transitional and just do it in the, because the pink is BAE, you're not gonna put multifamily in there. Because they'll, BAE owns it.
The pink is what?
That's BAE.
There's a lot of that.
That's where they have the, the fenced in, it's.
Yeah, so
they
we-
do electrical
The domes,
radar.
radar.
So why do you do that? I mean, is that same court gonna look at this and say, well, the person can't reasonably build in there because BAE's in there? I mean, why is what I'm trying to figure out. You're saying we're drawing this, but then you're saying, but consider that, we can't do it here, we can't do it there, but we're gonna draw it there anyways. I don't get that logic either.
Because
But no, BAE sells, when they close the facility and they sell the land.
Okay, so there you
So
go.
there's potential to build it.
Yeah, so
You have to allow it somewhere.
it's a
otherwise-
lot of land here that you're opening up strictly to multifamily and continuing to shut it down to single family, basically. is what-
Strictly the multifamily.
You still have that whole, Mr. Schopenhauer homes and all that below it, and you're
Yep.
not shutting down, you're not allowing single family residents.
I'm not focusing in on where single families are already allowed. I'm
We're not
focusing
shutting
on-
it down because it's
It's not
already
allowed.
shut down.
I know that.
That's the
what I'm
only-
saying is why can't you find a way either of allowing it, so changing these zones to some effect that does allow it as opposed to just allowing the multifamily in an area where that's really all they're gonna build because that's all they can build.
Who's
You're
gonna
not
want to
gonna
build a
attract those
residential
kind of
neighborhood of
businesses.
single family homes right along the highway? I mean,
And also, multifamily's not all they can build. The underlying zoning still
still there for
holds,
something
and
else.
there's still some potential.
I know.
Just for a reason.
I
Some
mean, you can
developer
give a
could
crystal
find
ball
value
answer
in
to
that.
that too. If we haven't attracted that kind of business in the past, what makes us think we're gonna attract them now? I mean, because we allow multifamily in there, all of a sudden all these businesses are gonna rush in?
Not saying it could happen, but the
So all that's
possibility.
gonna happen is multifamily in those areas.
I would hope
And
more
nobody
than
may
that,
want to
but-
come in and build them.
That too. Just because we make that an available option doesn't mean a developer will find that to be a useful way to.
Then why are we
to
worried
build.
about a lawsuit?
Because we're trying to control where they are
Because
built,
if they
do
don't
build
have
them.
it, they can go anywhere they want. That's,
The courts have something what they call builder's remedy. It's an action in equity. And the court could say, basically, because you don't meet the requirements of the law for reasonable and realistic opportunity, that we're going to allow the developer to build. It's out of fairness. It's a
Yeah.
question of
I
fairness.
understand that.
So it's really, that's.
No, again, I understand that, and I think, again, it doesn't go back to whether you should or shouldn't, I think it's how much is what it's gonna come down to the voter.
Hey, folks, just a friendly reminder, it's 10 minutes till 10, and I'd like to wrap up by 10 this evening. So let's go around the room. Anything else to offer? Yes, sir.
If you could bring this out, maybe like down to here, open it up a little bit.
Your name, sir?
Oh, the other way.
We need a name, sir.
Yeah, what's your
Oh,
name,
I'm
sir?
sorry, Steve Dishon, 131 Page Road.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So, what are you interested in seeing?
One more. Okay. I have this lot here, it's close to 8 acres. I was wondering if you could, think about zoning, bringing the zoning line up to maybe Chase Brook. What's gonna happen here is everybody on this side of the road could do multifamily. Across the street from me, there's a lot of 3 acres, 6 acres, and 4 acres. These are actually reversed in real life. They're all ready for redevelopment. They're borderline.
Yeah.
So now, I'm gonna have, more than likely, how these are, they're not gonna come up to single-family houses.
Thank you.
Because density is where they're gonna make their money. This is I can't say multi-unit, a two-family. These properties are all duplex homes in this development here.
Yep.
So, I don't know if you could include my lot into your overlay district or bring the line up, but it kind of makes a conflict. And the same thing here is more than likely this land is going to get developed. These developers build multi-unit buildings. Mr. Slattery already has 300 units. This guy here, Mr. St. Armand, now he can't sell his land, but these guys' land is worth twice as much. It's just kind of I just think that this is more of a natural line. This is town-owned land. These are all houses that can't be redeveloped. And the same thing here. That's all I have.
Thank you. Did you? I'm sorry. Final comments?
How wide is that strip fronting 3A? I mean, is it just a lot deep or 2 lots deep or 3 lots deep?
It's not even a lot deep. It's, if I remember right from just measuring it on the GIS data, it varies anywhere from, I think, 250 feet to 600 feet, approximately.
You really couldn't put multifamily there. You don't have a space for it. Density requirements, you couldn't put it in there. And that's why if the zoning changes on the ballot, that's gonna not be multifamily, right?
Well,
If the zoning
as
gets
proposed,
approved.
that transitional goes away just because of the split lot zoning that we discussed earlier. There, it just makes as,
Quick question, Darlene DeBlois. If it gets rezoned this way, that would be on the 21st, and it would be a public vote or a vote you
Well,
guys?
what
do?
happens
town
next?
meeting.
Town meeting, okay, and then if it gets passed, does that change my tax base too? No? So nothing changes?
Well, their land would be much more valuable.
Well, that's-
Possibly.
Yeah, see, I'm freaking
Much
out.
more valuable.
Shut up over here. So that's a huge concern to me.
Does multifamily change the value?
Yeah, the overlay district.
Oh.
Because I can like barely afford what my tax bill just came in. So if I had to re-budget my income to save for this.
When it changes, you'd be grandfathered, right? So if you.
No, it's when the zoning changed in the commercial, the
It's
people got
the
taxed.
best, highest use of the land that drives that.
I still can't afford it. I Seriously, everyone wants
Very good
open
question.
farmland. It's like-
Yeah, it's a very good question. Glad you brought that up.
So, would we know how much it gets raised to? I don't like surprises.
I wouldn't be able to answer that. I just don't have
Could
the...
we find out from the assessors?
That would be the person to ask.
It's a fact. Look at Kessler's in Nashua. It was a farm, they changed it, he lost the whole farm. Now it's all shopping centers.
It was tax poor.
Right?
Yeah, tax poor.
I mean, that's what happens when you fool around with zoning and these things, it really costs people money.
It's a very good point. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I'm sorry
I
I don't
didn't
have a
get
good
an
answer.
answer.
I'm sorry I don't have a good answer for that question.
Arlene, is your land in current use?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Ah, that may be the
That's what we were
key.
talking about last time. If
So
it's
then-
in current use, I swear we said something that it wasn't.
It still goes up all the time.
Well, I think it goes up.
Yeah, it goes up, but it won't change to a different usage.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just because the cost of
It
running
changes
town
if
goes
you
up and up.
change-
Only if you
Use of
change,
property.
only if you decide to change
Okay.
that.
If you go out of your current use.
Okay.
I would want to verify that.
Yeah.
So,
But I thought we did discuss that.
Well, I'll try and get a hold of the assessors.
and the 21st is a public hearing, and then
Yeah.
the vote is town vote day, which is what,
March 13th, I think.
What we'll do
So
is,
you can
March
come
12th.
back on the 21st for
We'll
updates
go-
if we'll give it to you.
we'll go through these, all the input, make changes to it, and then we have to have another hearing before it goes to the,
So my taxes really wouldn't change from current use until
unless you
if I
sold
sold
it
it.
or built
Okay.
them yourself.
Okay.
That's the way we understood it, and we'll certainly verify
On the
that.
21st, the agricultural part can't be brought back.
That will be the second hearing for what we're having a hearing on this
No,
evening.
no, that's,
There's a work session
Made a
before
motion
that.
on
Not
it.
gonna come back.
Oh, wait a
Well,
minute.
there's a work session the first Tuesday in January, and then the hearing is the third Tuesday in January.
Third Tuesday. Let me pull up my calendar.
His question
But the
is-
question is, this can't be brought back. It's
Is-
off the table completely.
So from a procedural standpoint, what the board's doing here, that you're taking public comments, they're gonna, on the 7th, have a work session, try and work through the comments. Depending on what they're able to work through on the 7th, they'll decide what they want to continue moving forward. At that time, they'll have to make a vote to send something to a second hearing. If the board gets to a point where they say, we cannot make an adequate set of revisions to this to have a complete product, they may choose at that time to table it and not send it forward to a second hearing on the 21st. What would happen on the 21st is another hearing like tonight to present back to you, here's what we heard, here's how we revised the drafts. Does it work? And then at that point, the board has to stay here, they're so thrilled, on the 21st until they are 100% confident and comfortable with the shape of a draft. And at that point, they can either vote to table, toss it out the window, or send it to town meeting. But before they leave here on the 21st, they have to have a draft in the final form that it would go and be presented to the voters.
But-
at
but-
town
Question,
meeting.
can we vote on the 7th
So-
to table agricultural, so his.
Yes, on the 7th, you
not gonna
could
happen.
vote to table the agricultural and not move it forward. So,
Which means it's dead, it's not gonna be on the ballot, it won't go to public hearing.
And on the 21st, if you're not having a third hearing, you're not making any changes on the 21st, you're either nixing them or sending them to town meeting.
21st is the last possible date to hold another hearing, so at that point,
That's
if
it.
that's it, if it's ready, you vote and it goes, it gets sent to the voters. If it's not ready,
Doesn't go.
it doesn't go.
We have to vote on the 7th to table agriculture, but if you want, if you have his information, can we email him to say it's tabled, so that you don't have to come to the meeting? Is that what you're asking on the 21st?
Well, I think there are an awful lot of people here that are very interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any way we have email addresses or.
Well, I would think Mr. Wilson is definitely a person that would have to be
Yeah,
contacted.
we've been sending info directly to him.
So we would know who to get the word out that that's tabled if on the 7th we table it. So that you won't have to come back unless you're interested in all the other fun stuff.
So if you want a direct email, leave us your
Yeah,
email
Margaret,
and
I don't
we
think I have your
can.
email, could you email?
No, I can write it down.
But also, you're all welcome come back.
Benefit us.
We're not saying you have to come back, you can come.
The first and third Tuesday, we're here at 7 o'clock.
And
join us.
But if you're concerned,
I sat with you for 8 years. I've already been here.
You can come back and visit more often.
You're welcome to join. We could use another
I
alternate.
was on the board for 8 years. So.
We could use an alternate, experienced.
Telling you, he's retired.
I think he's asking.
Continuing along, is there any other additional input? Anyone else like to speak?
I just would like to make a comment. I find that
People don't know that underscore.
all these changes at once are very hard for ordinary voters to comprehend. I mean, we've been through all this stuff, but I can't really say as I read this that I could assimilate it all, and I'd have to go home and read it over, and I've had a little bit of experience with this. And I can just imagine when this goes on the ballot, I mean, it affects all parts of town just about except in the middle, and people don't even know what's in here. It's so much thrown at people. Better to do this maybe 1 year tackle commercial, another year this, than everything at 1 year. It's just too overwhelming, I find.
It's a lot for a board to take on as well. It's been a real
It's
challenge for
much
us.
to do.
So the next part for us is a lot of public outreach. Once we do have locked down verbiage, once we know what we're going to be bringing to ballot, it's up to us to make contact with the community.
Yeah, but the
So you all know-
community should know before it gets to that stage, so they can see
Well,
it.
we have been holding listening sessions. We've spent the summer reaching out.
Town
So
meeting
we,
too, they could ask questions.
oh, and absolutely, at town deliberative session, that's a good opportunity
The
to,
deadline's passed by then.
Yeah.
You're gonna want them to get in. I mean, sometimes you don't think of something, but some people here brought up some very good ideas to us.
Fortunately.
we had a lot of really good input this evening.
As
Yeah.
a taxpayer, I thank you very much. It takes a lot to come over here all the times you do, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Well, at that, let's close public input. We will be continuing deliberations on this matter on January 7th. The board still has to consider all of the input that all of you folks have given us this evening. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
So this all goes under outreach?
I'd rather be on the golf course.
And that goes under
From now to the end under town meeting.
Is it town meeting?
Indoors, at the deep
Back to our agenda.
Started yet?
Yes, it all goes
Okay,
towards
'cause I'm going
getting
second
stuff
half.
ready.
With Mark, yeah.
I want to get the noise level down a little bit, and I just want to, Joan and Jen, make sure.
Now to
Keeps
the
you
end.
loose.
So you
Nothing
want-
Right. I'll see you. Thank you, you too.
You can have this one.
Mike.
What do you guys want me to do?
Tomorrow night, Litchfield, Mike.
So in 30 seconds, say what you want me to do. I've taken up a bazillion notes.
Yep, me too.
I can either come back with just the notes, or I can come back with draft revisions that respond to the notes.
It's hard to say, I have to be there, I get the executive.
Why would we want
So I think Spruce
the
said-
revision? On what?
So then do you agree with that?
Everything we've heard tonight, I have multiple ordinances, just with word bubbles.
Now, we're going to deliberate on the 7th on all of this stuff.
Yeah, so
We deliberate on the 7th, we go to public hearing on the 21st.
So the 7th is our last day to look at it before it goes.
yes.
I think I need to.
And you need to finalize your text there at the meeting on the 7th.
Right. And we
I
need to
think I
lock it
need
in.
to have the
You want
text.
bubbles, not like track changes, amendments?
Yes, you can see them like we always do on the side.
Okay, so you want me to, all right, so then I'll throw in the side some kind of proposed amendments as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
But I think I need to have the newspaper ad
And I
like
think there's no
that
question the
day.
other's
Yes.
getting taken.
So it would be helpful to know if agriculture is coming or going.
so,
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do.
so a couple things. If you have no changes to your bylaws and your site plan regulations, those do not need a second hearing.
Right.
So if you had no changes and you wanted to make a motion on them tonight,
We
you
can get that
can,
finished.
and you can get that finished and be done. So that's one thing. See, what Joe needs to know is what to put in the notice, because you have to send the notice out noon on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So actually, before you get here, she's gotta send the notice out.
Can we vote tonight?
If you want to table that for a year, you can tonight vote to table it.
It's gonna happen anyways, might as well.
So you can table the ag if you want to, and you can vote on your site plan and your bylaws now, and that gets those out of the way. Then you only have 3 things to work on the 7th, and 3 things to go to hearing on the 21st.
And I might suggest tabling multifamily as well.
I don't think there's as much opposition on that as.
No, you had people saying include.
I know, I think you have.
I was like, whoa.
Have one.
If you see somebody that wants to build
No,
a
one opposition.
So,
That's
Bear in
it.
mind, though,
if we go forward with it,
bear in mind, town council has recommended
yes.
that you go through with it, and I think you should follow.
I think now's a good time to go through with it.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever be, I don't think it'll be as ripe as it is now.
So I'll drop that suggestion.
Okay.
So we will go forward with it. We have to put together a good outreach strategy. There's too much misunderstanding and intertwining of multifamily and workforce that needs to be separated out and defined.
Yep.
So anyway, going through what we've had tonight, it seems like there's no changes needed to the planning board bylaws. Do I have a motion to approve the planning board bylaws?
Motion to approve planning board bylaws?
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries 600. We have bylaws, gentlemen. Finally, some framework. How about site plan review regulation amendments?
Make a motion to approve the site plan
I didn't even see you come
regulation
in.
amendments. What?
I didn't even see you come in.
Second?
For you.
Yeah.
Who seconded? I can't.
Tom seconded it. So I have a motion and a second to approve the site plan review regulation amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstain? That has also passed. Thank you, gentlemen. So that's 2 more things that we don't have to worry about at our next
Now you can
meeting.
Table the,
I make a motion
table
to
the other one.
table the agricultural overlay district for a year.
Second.
Racing for the seconds.
So that was Mike and who second?
I don't even know what we.
Joel.
We all do.
Joel. Yeah.
Everybody seconded that.
Wow.
Sorry, Donna.
Everybody
Okay,
first.
table it for 1 year.
1 year.
So I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you, gentlemen. The agricultural overlay district is tabled. We'll continue work on that in 2014.
If we table for a year, do we have to address it? If we table it?
It is part of the grant.
What you're just saying is, you know what, we're not gonna put it on the ballot, we're gonna push it forward. We'll work on it over the next year, but we recognize that we need to work on it more. We need to do a little bit more outreach, during the growing off-season, that was the big hurdle with this one, is, a month ago, or not even, more than a month ago now, we started trying to reach out to all of the farms in town to say, this is what we drafted, we need your input, this is what we drafted, we need your input. And, I will give Kim credit, she is persistent. And it wasn't until the last couple weeks that she started getting replies, and that's because they have been extremely busy.
Right.
And it was, the timing was terrible. And the town meeting cycle does not work to do a project in 1 year and meet their growing harvest season schedule as well. And that's what I talked about with Ben Frost specifically, was that we have an outreach timing problem with this piece, and we're running out of time, and we need their input. So.
But to me, it sounds like
Yeah.
they don't ever want to have it.
No, and
I don't think it, I think the problem is it doesn't work.
it's scary.
Yeah.
No, it's not that it's scary. The intent, like I said in the meeting December 10th, the purpose and intent is there.
Right.
Go to the next page, you lose it all. You don't, it has nothing to do with farms.
It's a mini, open space overlay, conservation, whatever, open space subdivision.
Yeah, and
Which
the
you
o-
already have anyway, so.
And they're not happy with the open space either.
No, they're not.
Well, when they see 60 acres get saved on the next development that comes in, maybe they'll change their mind.
So anyway, we have work to do on that, and we'll continue that work into
And
the
you're
new
gonna,
year.
I guess, we made a vote so the people who are doing the grant
Yep.
are gonna know that we've tabled this.
Yep.
and- Yep, okay.
But you talked to them, all right?
Yeah,
And
we
it'll
talked.
explain why.
Yeah, I think we have good justification on our side to continue working on this and not put it before the voters in its current state. It's premature. We're getting there now.
Leave me out. Leave me out.
Yeah.
One bond thing that I need voted on.
Yes,
That's all.
and we do have to pay attention to that this evening, right, Joan?
What was that? For like a,
The Heron Drive?
right?
Okay.
Put it up on screen.
Actually,
I could, couldn't
on
I?
the s- On the site today.
It's only one page.
Yeah, I can't grab it. Placement's kind of hokey.
Yeah, see if you can open it, because I did it as a insert, I think. Oh, you got it open?
Got it open on my screen, but I wanted to put it onto the Jumbotron. I can't grab it. What the? In some ways, Windows 7 is real friendly, and in some ways, not so much.
That frightens me.
Yeah, we've been...
Like they say, Windows and Google don't play nice
No,
together.
I'm
Oh my
on
God.
whatever was before 7.
Vista was
No, I don't know what I've been.
XP.
XP.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah,
XP was good.
we were just forced to migrate at work from XP to 7. It's been an adjustment.
Wait till you see 8.
I have 8 on here. I hate it.
It's,
I hate it.
my wife ordered a laptop and purposely said to put 7 on it. Because she just, if you don't have a touch screen, it's kind of,
Yeah. So anyway, what I'm running here is Windows 8.1, and I'm struggling to try to get this document onto that display.
What do I have?
Oh, man.
All I know is whatever.
If you-
the one
Realize too that
they had it on
the
computer.
laptops and the iPads don't play well together either.
I gave up my, I just use an iPad, I gave up my laptop. Everything I need to do is on an iPad.
It's current.
Anyway.
What if you throw it into Word and then bring it up?
No. I've been able to move PDFs over onto that screen all night, but for some reason I can't get this one to move over.
Is it?
Just the placement of it is hokey.
Okay.
Did you eat supper?
I just can't grab.
3 hours.
I always stop at the Irving station.
It came from Keene.
I just read it out.
But this wasn't that much still.
Just read it out.
It's in our package. We all have access to it electronically.
No, they did. It started at 12 o'clock. And just kept
Let Joan
going.
read it out.
I came from
And
Massachusetts.
then all this is truckers on 101.
Yeah,
No?
I was at 5.
Where
Yeah, I know.
Andover.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even that far from the border.
No.
So Lou is asking
Typically
us...
with traffic anyways. On
Gentlemen?
Do you go 93?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a request here from Lou Karen. Dear Planning Board members, let me make this big enough so I can see it. On November 15th, 2013, Hudson Paving placed the 1-inch hot bituminous pavement wearing course on the roadway. 222 tons of pavement was placed on the roadway, yielding an average compacted thickness of 1.24 inches. See attached paving summary sheet, which wasn't attached. It is noted that the HBP paving slips totaled 239.97 tons of asphalt, of which approximately 18 tons were used to pave the wedge in the cul-de-sac and pave an apron around CB number 11. Work remaining at the site includes final grading, seed, fertilizer, and mulch within the cul-de-sac, the outside slopes between station 8 plus 70 and 9 plus 20, plus placing an 18-inch stop bar at the intersection with Tanager Way. In addition, I offer the following maintenance bond amount for this roadway. Approximately 1,100 linear feet of roadway at $15 per linear foot, $16,500. If you have any questions or need further assistance, yada yada, sincerely Lou. So we need a motion for that bond? Is that what you're looking for, John?
Yeah, the stop bar is in, by the way.
Okay.
Yes, we need a motion. To recommend to the selectmen.
To recommend to the selectmen that we increase the bond amount or establish the
Do
bond
a
amount?
2-year maintenance bond for that amount.
Okay, I make a motion that the planning board recommend to the Board of Selectmen for the Heron Drive subdivision, a maintenance bond in the amount of $16,500.
Second.
Did I word that adequately enough, Joan? Will that meet the goals that we're shooting for?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 5-0-0.
Thank you.
And unless you guys want to stick around and approve minutes, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been an entertaining evening. I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you.
Happy New Year to everybody.
See you back here January 7th.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Do you want to come in later and sign these, or you want to sign them now?
I have Friday off. I'll sign them now.
Thanks.